You can go away. Tian hears LV's voice and looks at him indifferently. Listening to Tian's voice, LV's face is full of bitterness. With a tragic smile, he picks up LV Ming and wants to walk back to the car. But after 2 steps, he sees that the Rolls-Royce, which has been completely deformed by Liang, has more bitterness on his face. The loss of a Rolls-Royce, 2 casinos and a hotel this time is not only a matter of muscle and bone, but also a direct injury to the origin. It is very difficult for the LV family to make a comeback in the future. It's over. Let's break up. At this time, Tian said with a smile after giving thanks to the people around him. Without any hesitation, he nodded his head and turned to leave. Tian, thank you. After waiting for all the people to leave, Ning Shui looks at Tian, a smile on her face and says. She really didn't expect that Tian would suddenly appear, but she was really happy to see Tian help her to get justice. All this shows one thing, that is, Tian has her place in her heart. Even at this moment, she couldn't help thanking Lu Ming. If it wasn't for the annoying fly, she couldn't prove it. For her, it is more important to know that she has a place in Tian's heart than Lu Ming's humiliation. You're welcome in the future. If you encounter such flies again, you don't have to be polite to them. Just do it. You don't use it to see this kind of rubbish. The more you reason with them, the more you feel that those who are clean, and the more they feel that you are bullying them. Tian casually waved his hand, indicating that Ning Shui didn't have to be so polite. I remember. Ning Shui nodded hard, and her smile was very bright. Well, I'm afraid we're not happy with such a big scene. Let's go back to the old gambler first, and then get ready to go back to Nanhai. Tian looked around and found that although the onlookers were scattered, most of them still poked their heads towards this side. After a bitter smile, he told Ning Shui. Ning Shui naturally is only Leaf Day is from, after hearing his words, then nodded, followed Leaf Day, got on the car of the old gambling king. I bought it for you. I don't know if it fits or not. After getting on the bus, Ning Shui took out a bought sweater and handed it to Tian, looking forward to the road. Tian took the sweater and glanced at it. He saw that the sweater Ning Shui bought was just the size she often wore. It was obvious that Ning Shui had paid attention to these things in the past, otherwise, she would not have chosen so well. Thank you. I love it this scene, let Tian can't help but some sigh. At this moment, even if he is a fool, can see, rather snow to his heart. But now he has Ning Yao in his heart and Qin Luoshan around him. Although Ning Shui's heart is precious, he really doesn't want such a good girl to waste her youth on herself. After all, no woman is willing to share a person's feelings with others. Just like it. Ning Shui smiles brightly, and the corners of her mouth and eyebrows are full of sweetness. Why didn't you buy anything? Tian looks at the appearance of Ning Shui, sighs at the bottom of his heart, then turns to look at the empty hand of Chun Qing, and asks with a smile. Ning Shui bought a lot of things, even the cicada, but Qing didn't buy anything. He said to old gambler before that he gave her a bank card, which she could swipe. Unexpectedly, she didn't buy anything. I'm already very happy. It's better to save money. She said with a smile, full of satisfaction. Tian can't help laughing when he hears the words. I don't like to spend money, I like to save money. This is really the nature of the charm of Qing. It's the cicada who bought a lot of toys and clothes. How do you think it doesn't look like a qualified charm of Qing? After a while, they went back to old gambler manor and had a rest. When old gambler said he had contacted the private plane and could fly directly to the South China Sea at any time, Tian said goodbye to old gambler and left. He promised Yin Bing that he would not be absent from school for a period of time before Yin Bing resigned and left. Naturally, he had to keep his word. A few hours later, the plane landed steadily at Nanhai Airport. Although Ning Shui is reluctant to part with her, she still goes back to Ning's home by car, while Tian goes back to the rental house with Yu Qing and Yu Chana. Xiaoya, you are back. These days, you should clean up and move out. We are going to sell the house. Don't worry. I'll pay you back the rent you paid before. I'm really sorry. When Tian Gang comes to the entrance of the rental house alley, he sees the landlord's aunt and 2 young men in suits coming from the entrance of the alley. When he sees Yi Tianho, the landlord's aunt immediately looks embarrassed and tells Yi Tiandao. The landlady wants to sell the rental house? Hearing the sound, Yi Tian couldn't help laughing bitterly. Since he made money, he has been thinking about buying the rental house. One reason is that he is used to living here, and the other is that he has set up a spirit gathering array here. If he moves, he will start all over again. Moreover, in a city like Nanhai, it's too difficult to buy a secluded courtyard with a single family. After all, even a villa is built in a residential area. It's said that it's very private, but it's very close to the neighbors. If there's a bit of noise, others will find it. He really didn't expect that before he proposed to buy a house from the landlady. The other party even planned to sell the house. Are you going to sell the house? Great. I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to buy this house. How much do you want to sell it for? I'll buy it at their price, even if it's a little more. Think of here, Yi Tian immediately looked at the landlord aunt, said with a smile. Xiao Yi, don't be kidding. The landlady looked at Yi Tian suspiciously and said. She remembers very clearly that the reason why Yi Tian wanted to rent a house here was very simple, that is, he wanted to be cheap. A college student, in addition to winning the lottery, how can he suddenly have the money to buy a house? Auntie, I'm not kidding. I'm used to living in your house and feel very comfortable, so I want to buy it. If you can't trust me, we'll go to the bank tomorrow morning to go through the formalities. I'll give you the money, and then I'll transfer the house to another account. Yi Tianware cannot know the landlord aunt's mind, looking at her smile, Wei. Do you really want to buy it? Won the lottery? Landlord aunt see Yi Tian's appearance, can't help a Zhang, stunned hair asked. When one began to rent a house, he said that as long as the college students were cheap, they would suddenly buy a house in less than half a year. Cough. But at this time, the two young people beside the landlady suddenly covered their mouths and coughed gently. Xiao Yi, I'm really sorry. You said it was too late. I've decided to sell the house to someone else. Hearing this, the landlady pointed to the two young people around her. She looked at Yi Tian with a smile and said, Other people want to buy rental houses too? Hearing this, Yi Tian was stunned and looked at the two young men. In fact, the location of this rental house is not good, it is very remote, and there are many problems left over by history. It is very difficult to demolish. It is not a good choice whether it is living or investing. Needless to say, people have died here. It's a vicious house. It's one of the most taboo houses for house buyers. He really did not expect that someone would rush to buy such a house which has no investment value and is not so comfortable to live in. Did you sign the contract? If not, I can give you more money. Although full of doubts, but Yi Tian, also lazy to care so much, looking at the landlord aunt, asked with a smile. The landlady's eyes changed when she heard the news, and her expression immediately moved. Little brother, I advise you not to do so. At the same time, a young man took Yi Tian's arm, took him to one side, lowered his voice, and threatened, There are millions of houses in the world, why buy the one that will set fire? Draw fire against oneself? When Yi Tian hears the sound, he can't help picking his eyebrows slightly, and his thoughts float in his heart. It seems that they are determined to get the rental house. It's just, what is there in renting a house that can attract these people so much? Is the chi of the spirit gathering array discovered? Some people think that living here can promote cultivation? Little brother, don't play with us. You can't play with us. Pack up your things and go now, or you will regret it. At this time, the young man threatened Yi Tianchen. You may not know that my favorite thing is playing with fire. When Yi Tian heard the speech, he picked up his eyebrows and laughed. His shoulder trembled slightly, and he shook the young man's arm to one side. Then he turned to look at the landlady and said with a smile, Auntie, have you signed the contract? I didn't sign the contract, but they are willing to pay 600,000 yuan. Xiao yeah, look. Landlord aunt hesitates for a while, slowly Wei, some don't believe of looking at Leaf Day. Yi Tian wants to buy his house, which is really beyond her expectation, and she really doesn't believe that a college student can take out so much money. Since I didn't sign the contract, it's easy. I'll pay 800,000. I'll see you at the bank tomorrow morning, and I'll give you the full amount. Yi Tian smell speech, smile looking at landlord Ant, Wei. Really? The landlady was overjoyed and looked at Yi Tian in disbelief. There is no one who dislikes selling his house for more money, let alone a vicious house. But, 800000, she really didn't believe that Yi Tian, a young man who wanted to rent the cheapest house before, could come up with it. Well, auntie, you give me an account number. I'll give you a deposit of 100,000 yuan first. Let's meet at the bank at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If I don't go by then, I don't want any deposit. Yi Tian sees the appearance of the landlord's aunt. How can she not know that she has been moved? Even if she takes out her mobile phone, she simply and rudely transfers 100,000 yuan of cash to the landlord's aunt's usual rent collection account, and says, I'm sorry. Well, tell me Xiao Yi has been renting from me all the time, and the rent has been transferred on time. The price he gave is also suitable. I'm sorry, you too. If you ask other people nearby, they must want to sell their houses. After receiving the deposit, the landlady immediately looked at the two young people and said with a smile, Little brother, you will regret it. Seeing this, the two young people looked at each other, then turned around and walked towards the night. Yi Tianzhen didn't pay attention to their threat, but shrugged. There are countless people who threaten him, but unfortunately, the fate of those guys is not good looking. Xiao Yi, let's meet at the bank at the entrance of the alley at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. The landlord's aunt smiles at Yi Tian and takes 2 steps. Then she turns her head and says to Yi Tian, those two people just now don't seem to be easy to get into trouble. If they do something, you can tell her that if they can't, I'll refund the deposit to you. Don't buy the house. You are a young man. It's not good to buy a vicious house. So much money is enough to buy a good house in a good location and pay a down payment. Yi Tian really likes Yi Tian during her stay here. This young man not only paid the rent in time, but also didn't have so many things to do. He went to her restaurant every once in a while to support her. He was really a good young man. If there was any good or bad, she felt sorry. Thank you, auntie. Don't worry. I'll see you at the bank tomorrow. Be careful on the way back. Yi Tian nodded with a smile, told the landlady a few words, then sent her out of the alley. Why did someone want to buy a house here all of a sudden? I have lived here for several years, and I haven't seen anyone buy a house here. All the people who live here move out all the time. After waiting for the landlord's aunt to leave, she mumbled in confusion. It seems that those who buy houses are really hiding some thoughts. Are they aiming at the spirit-gathering array? Yi Tian's mood changes, but he is too lazy to think so much. After all, if the other party really has to buy here, then they must meet again later. By then, all the confusion will be solved. Squeak squeak. At this time, the little chestnut, who was held by the cicada in her arms, suddenly woke up and cried. Good guy, you really have a good sleep. When Yi Tian heard this, he knocked on Xiao Li's forehead twice. After careful examination, he found that there was a blue silk thread in Xiao Li's eyes, which was as dazzling as a ruby. It was interwoven with red and blue. Not only that, its appearance, but also a bit of treasure's solemn feeling, it seems to be a bit of the feeling of a small demon. The 4th floor of the cave, Yi Tian looked carefully and found that Xiao Li's cultivation breath had been improved. It was obvious that the demon pill brought great fortune to him, improved his body and broke through the shackles. According to this progress, Yi Tian felt that even if one day, Xiao Li suddenly began to speak, it was not strange. How can the orthodoxy of the great dream fancy appear on a small evil animal and make it become a Buddha's heart? It's not only Yi Tian, the secret hand in the storage ring, but also finds the strangeness on Xiao Li. Tut is so strange that he constantly sounds to Yi Tian. Yi Tian turned a deaf ear and paid no attention at all. He has made up his mind to hang this mysterious hand well for a period of time, so that it can't find people to communicate and feel lonely like snow. At that time, he will ask it again and find out its origin. Why don't you talk? Are you deaf? Speaking to tuberculosis, it's the hardest thing to say but not to get a response. The secret hand sees that Yi Tian ignores it and roars angrily. Unfortunately, Tian still has no response. The secret hand yelled angrily. Seeing that Tian was not moved, he gritted his teeth, changed his strategy, and said in bewitching language, "The big dream fancy mental method practiced by this little evil animal is not complete. Take me to do some big ones, and I will pass it a complete big dream fancy mental method. What do you think? Secret hand, there is the complete mental skill of Demeng Fanzi?" Tian's tongue. You should know that Fanzong is extremely mysterious. The mind dharma is only passed on to disciples, not to mention outsiders. The great dream Fanzi has a transcendent status. His complete mind dharma must be collected by Fanzong. It's amazing that his secret hand knows it. Not only that, but Tian also grasped a message. The secret hand seems to like stealing very much, just as it has become its nature. If it doesn't do this kind of thing, it will feel itchy. It always encourages itself to steal and steal things with his help. Is theft its ability and its flaw? Tian felt that he was a step closer to the truth of his secret hand. Thinking of this, he didn't have any hesitation and didn't pay attention to the secret hand. Instead, he looked at the cicada who was holding the little chestnut and said, "It's late. Take the little chestnut and go back to have a rest. You two will talk well. Good night, master." Cicada happily saluted Tian, then held Shaoli Zi and said in a low voice, "Shaoli Zi, you don't know. During your sleeping time, we went to Hong Kong Island and Haojiang. I killed everywhere there, won a lot of money and bought a lot of things. Unfortunately, you fell asleep and didn't see anything. I don't know how powerful and domineering I was at that time." Squeak squeak. Hearing the sound, little Chestnut screamed and her big eyes were filled with regret. She felt sorry for missing this part. This little girl who hasn't grown up is the eldest martial sister of my Miluo palace? Tian looks at the back of the cicada and shakes his head with a bitter smile. But then, the color of bitter smile on his face became more intense. Some of his disciples, carefully speaking, Yan Liang of Hong Kong Island, turned out to be the most normal one a night without words, soon to the next morning. Tian hasn't got up yet. He hears a sudden knock on the door. He gets up and opens the door. He immediately sees that the landlord's aunt is standing at his door with a bag on her face. "Auntie, what's the matter?" Tian sees the landlord's aunt and immediately moves in her heart. She guesses some clues, but she still asks with a smile. "Xiao yeah, this is the deposit you paid yesterday. My aunt brought it to you. I can't sell you this house." The landlord aunt heard Tian's words, and quickly put the bag in her hand into Tian's hand. "Auntie, what do you say? Didn't you like it yesterday? Why did you change your mind today?" Tian is not in a hurry to take the bag, but looks at the landlord and asks with a smile. "Xiao Yi, I'm really sorry. If you're considerate of your aunt, don't buy this house. What's good here? It's remote and old, and it's also a murderous house. You're still young. If you want to get married, other girls will not like this kind of house. Take money with you and buy a good one." The landlord's aunt accompanied the smiling face, with the meaning of pleading in her words, told Tian. "Auntie, I'm really sorry. I really like it here. After living here for a while, I have feelings. As for the problems you mentioned, it's not a problem for me. I like to be clean and old. As long as there is no air or water leakage, it's okay. As for the murderous house, I'm young and powerful. I've lived here for so long, and I don't see anything unclean." Tian can see that the landlord's aunt is deliberately hiding something from him. She doesn't want to say it, so she shakes her head with a smile and says, "Xiao well, I'll give you another 50,000 yuan, and you'll promise your aunt that our agreement will be void and the house will be returned." Sure enough, the landlord aunt, a look at Tian, do not want to sell the house, immediately anxious, fiery looking at Tian, road. "Auntie, I really like it here. I really don't want to move away." Tian shook his head, then looked at the landlord aunt, said, "Aunt, you tell me the truth, is not yesterday those people forced you? If so, you tell me, I'll find a way." "Xiao Yi, don't be hard on auntie. Just take it as if I begged you. Please help me." Don't buy any more. The landlady looks at Yi Tian with a pleading face. As soon as she bites her teeth and her legs are soft, she will kneel down and kowtow to him. Auntie, please don't give up my birthday. Seeing this, Yi Tian quickly reaches out his hand and hands up the landlady. Xiao Yi, why do you force Auntie so much? I really can't help it. Please. The landlord's mother had a runny nose and a tear. She begged bitterly, but she refused to tell the reason. Auntie, I've lived here for so long. Don't you know if I'm unreasonable? What's your dilemma? Please tell me and I'll help you solve it. Don't worry. If I really can't help it, I'll move right away. Yi Tian sighed and looked at the landlady sincerely. At the same time, he is facing the landlord aunt's body into a magic. He felt that at this moment, the landlady's mind had been in a mess. Only when her mind was stable, could she speak well. Xiao Yi, you don't know. Just as I left here last night, I met those two young people again. They said, I'm going to sell you my house. It won't come to a good end. Just wait for the bad luck. At that time, I thought they were bluffing me, so I didn't take it seriously. But I didn't expect that after I got home and slept all night, my family couldn't get up when they were lying on the bed, and they couldn't wake up anyway. After I sent him to the hospital, the doctor didn't know what was going on with him? Still lying in the hospital then, I got a call from the two young people. As soon as they came up, they asked me how the old man was doing. I knew that things were not good. After the landlady got the magic power, she gradually calmed down and wiped her tears. Then she talked with Yi Tian about the cause and effect of the matter. Then she looked at Yi Tian prayingly and said, Xiao Yi, Auntie knows that I made a mistake in this matter, so you should take pity on me. Don't buy this house anymore. Your uncle and I depend on each other for a long time, all my life. I don't want him to leave like this. Overnight, suddenly sleeps not to wake up, sends to the hospital, the doctor also anything all cannot check out? Yi Tian's eyes suddenly changed when he heard the news. He could not be more familiar with his opponent's methods. He had seen this kind of small skill when he was on Hong Kong Island before. Auntie, don't worry. I'll ask you a few more questions. Did you have any strange feeling after sleeping last night? Immediately after, Yi Tian looks at the landlady and continues to ask. Strange feeling? The landlady was puzzled, hesitated for a moment, and then said, There's nothing strange about it. It's just that I fell asleep last night. Xiao Yi, why do you ask these things? Sleep very well, that is to use some means, while they sleep, and then under the hand. When Yi Tian hears the news, he immediately infers the other party's means. After hearing the words, he smiles and asks the landlord to take him to the hospital to see what happened to the landlord's uncle and then help him. Brother Dong, this is what the boss told us. But just then, along the lane, there was a loud noise, followed by Lu Zhendong and a group of young people who stabbed dragons and painted tigers. They came from a distance. As soon as they got to the door, a young man pointed to Yi Tian's door and said aloud. The landlady hears the news and looks at Lu Zhendong and the gangsters in fear. At this moment, she fully understood that her house must be sold to the two young people last night, otherwise, the old man's hospitalization last night was really just the beginning, and there would be countless hardships waiting for their home. Come on, let's go together and throw all the things in this house to me. At the same time, Lu Zhendong casually glanced at the door of the house, waved and said, but just half of what he said, before the word came out, he saw Yi Tianjing standing at the door with a smile on his face, looking at him playfully. Stop the fuck! Lu Zhendong saw Yi Tian smile, excited lingling to shiver. He couldn't help but say it in a loud voice. He thought that the one who lived here was just a tenant, but he didn't expect that it would be Yi Tian who didn't frighten him into 8 petals before. What do you mean, Donga? The boss said that he wanted us to drive out the guys who live here. How can you change your mind? Are we going to throw it or not? If you don't get rid of him, how can you go back to work with the boss? When the gang heard Lu Zhendong's words, they stood in the same place in a daze. Throw Nima. Throw. Get the hell out of here. Lu Zhendong heard the news, looked at the gangsters and gave a shout. Then he looked down at Yi Tian with a flattering expression. He ran to Yi Tian with a 90-degree deep bow and said with a smile, "Mr. Yi, I really don't know that you live here. Otherwise, I'll lend you 100 courage and I will never dare to make trouble in front of you." "This what's going on?" The landlady looked at the scene in a daze, and her head was dizzy. Just when Lu Zhendong brought people over, she thought that Yi Tian would be beaten, and she would also suffer. But unexpectedly, after Lu Zhendong saw Yi Tian, he was so scared. It looks like a mouse meets a cat and a kid meets Yama. However, when she rented the house to Yi Tian, she asked Yi Tian and knew that he was just an ordinary college student. She really couldn't understand why Yi Tian was so powerful and scared Lu Zhendong, who looked like a big bastard, into such a state. "Oh, who am I to be such a great prestige? I turned out to be the famous East brother." At this time, Yi Tian glanced at Lu Zhendong and said with a faint smile, "However, how come you're back more and more? Last time I saw you, you're still the boss. How come you haven't seen him in such a short time and found yourself a boss?" "Mr. Yi." Lu Zhendong heard Yi Tian's words, a face immediately cried down, face full of embarrassment and depression. "Donga, what do you mean? You don't listen to the boss. Do you think you are the boss now? I tell you, believe it or not, I'll call the boss immediately and ask him to tell you what to do in person." Without waiting for Lu Zhendong to finish his speech, a little gangster immediately looked at Lu Zhendong and jumped up and down angrily. "Look at that posture, this guy is going to climb up the new boss and squeeze Lu Zhendong down. Donga, it seems that you are getting more and more confused. Even your younger brother dares to yell at you like this." Yi Tian hears the sound and looks at Lu Zhendong with a sneer. However, at this moment, the vein in his heart has become more and more clear. Although Lu Zhendong is not good, he is like an insect in front of him, but at least he was once a big man in Nanhai. But now, Lu Zhendong has a big boss on his head, and even his younger brother is not obedient. People who can do such things are not idle people, nor can they do it by Lu Zhendong. The only explanation is that there are people from the mountain to destroy the power that Lu Zhendong has set up in the hearts of his younger brothers. "What the hell are you, dare to talk like that?" The little gangster heard Yi Tian's words, stemmed his neck, and rushed towards Yi Tian. Bang! Yi Tian doesn't wait for him to get close. He gently raises his hand and sends out a strong chi. Then he lifts the little gangster straight away and heavily bumps into the wall in the distance. Then he slides to the ground like a gecko. He coughs up blood and looks at Yi Tian in horror. The other gangsters around, one by one, look at Yi Tian as if they were looking at the gods. Their legs are shaking. They step back one after another and dare not approach Yi Tian for fear that they may touch Yi Tian's brow and end up with a similar result to their peers. "Mr. Yi, today's business is not my original intention. You don't know. Since I knew you, I have been washing my hands and no longer doing evil. I honestly opened my KTV and other businesses. But who would have thought that a few days ago, someone came to me and asked me to help him pull up his younger brothers? I don't know if they want to, they will take the life of my wife and children and threaten me." Seeing this, Lu Zhendong knelt down in front of Yi Tian and said in a trembling voice, "They are so powerful that I have no room to resist. Mr. Yi, please help me, I swear, as long as you save me, my dog's life will be yours in the future." "What do you want me to do? I will be honest. You said let me go east, I absolutely dare not go west." At the end of the day, Lu Zhendong had a runny nose and tears, which made his heart ache. This words really didn't deceive Leaf Day what? He had really washed his hands before, no longer contaminated with those things, and wanted to be a clean businessman. However, those people found him and asked him to come out of the mountain again. If he didn't follow, the other party asked him to think about it again. As a result, all his wife and children got strange diseases and were in a coma. Even if they were sent to the hospital, nothing was found. He knew that these things must have been done by those people in order to coerce him. He had no choice but to agree. Sure enough, after he promised, his wife and children miraculously woke up. However, when he went to pick up his wife and children, those people made it very clear to him that as long as he dares not to obey in the future, the situation of his wife and children will never be the first time, and the next time, it will be more terrible than this one. Under his fear, Lu Zhendong had to obey his orders. This time, he brought people to catch up with Yi Tian, but also got the other party's instructions, let him clean up the people living here. However, he never thought that the people who lived in this place were not others. It was Yi Tian that he was afraid of. However, although the appearance of Yi Tian made him afraid, he had a little hope at the same time. He felt that, perhaps, it was an opportunity for him to get rid of this terrible life. After all, although Yi Tian is terrible, he is still reasonable. As long as he changes his mind and becomes a new man, Yi Tian will not be difficult for him. But now the group of people who threaten him, it is obvious that even if he struggles to the point of losing his life for the other party will never pity him. He will only feel that there is no difference with a dead little ant, and then support a little ant to replace his position. Unconscious? Is it that the doctor can't wake up after all, and he has used all the means of examination, but he can't find out anything? Don't wait for Yi Tian to open her mouth. The landlady hears Lu Zhendong's words and looks at him in a hurry to ask. Yes, and sometimes there will be nosebleeds or ear bleeds. Although Lu Zhendong did not understand who the landlady was, he nodded. It's as like as two peas. It's as like as two peas. The landlady looked at Lu Zhendong in horror, trembling all over, and then said in a trembling voice, after you promised them, are all the family well? Okay. Lu Zhendong nodded, then gave a bitter smile and said slowly, it's just that when I don't listen to them, their fate will be worse than now. The landlady's legs trembled and she fell to the ground. At this moment, she fully understood that the threat to her family was just an appetizer. Since people can threaten them to drive Yi Tian away, naturally they can also threaten them to give the house to them free of charge. Of course, they can also let them give all their savings to them, or even let them sell their lives to them. What's more, not only them, but also their sons and daughters. She knows that this is not her wishful thinking. Since the other party can do this kind of thing without scruple this time, she can continue to do it without scruple next time. Auntie, don't worry. Take me to the hospital to see my uncle first. Believe me, there will be a way. When Yi Tian saw the appearance of the landlady, how could he not know her worry? He laughed and said. The landlord's aunt looks at Yi Tian in disbelief, and then looks around. Thinking of the picture that Yi Tian just raised his hand and flew away, she lowers her head. After a long silence, she nods her head without thinking. And you, call your wife and children. After Yi Tian hands the landlady up from the ground, he turns to the side, bows and stands beside him, looking at his own Lu Zhendong with a full face. Although Lu Zhendong has done a lot of bad things in the past, they are all trivial things, which is not a great evil. Since he is willing to change his mind and be a new man, it shows that he still has the heart of kindness. In this case, Yi Tian doesn't mind pulling him. Thank you, Mr. Yi. Thank you, Mr. Yi. Lu Zhendong nodded and bowed, and almost everyone was about to cry. In the past, even if he killed him, he never thought that one day, it was Yi Tian who was regarded as the devil by him. Don't waste so much talk, contact people. Yi Tian shook his head with a bitter smile, but said. Not to mention Lu Zhendong, even if he was himself, he never thought that he would pull Lu Zhendong one day. After a while, the party arrived at the hospital. In the ward, the landlord's uncle was lying on the bed with an oxygen mask on his cheek. Although there was a pair of young men and women calling, he didn't move at all. Xiao Yi, please, help your uncle and aunt. Landlady see this scene, immediately holding Yi Tian's hand, tears, pray. Auntie, don't worry. I will. My uncle will be fine. Yi Tian smiles and nods. In a moment, he opens Yuan Tian's eyes and glances at the landlord's uncle. It's really this thing. A glance past, Yi Tian immediately see, in the position of the landlord uncle eyebrow mud pill palace, there is a red blood color strange insect crawling. This insect is the same as the bloody insect Yi Tian saw in Jaimo's mud pill palace when he was on Hong Kong Island. Overseas Lingchuan zone, impressively extended its tentacles to the South China Sea. Xiao Yi, do you have any idea? The landlady nervously looks at Yi Tian. Her eyes are full of hopes and prayers. She is afraid that Yi Tian shakes her head and says that he has nothing to do. Auntie, don't worry. Small problems can be solved immediately. Yi Tian looked at the landlord's aunt and laughed, then looked around and said, I'm going to treat the patient. You go out first. who is he, Ma? The young men and women in the ward heard the words, looked at the landlord's aunt, and asked suspiciously. The landlord's aunt hears the words, and wants to say nothing. She is worried that if she tells Yi Tian's identity, her children will not agree with her, and only leave their father and Yi Tian together. Believe me, it won't be long, 2 minutes at most. Yi Tian sees this, looking at the landlord aunt to smile, Wei. You all come out with me. I'll talk to you slowly. The landlady heard Yi Tian's words, gritted her teeth, settled down, pulled her children, and went out the door. Lu Zhendong quickly followed them and walked out of the ward. Lingqiangzong people are very active recently, first on Hong Kong Island and now in the South China Sea. It seems that they intend to extend their hands to the land. However, according to Xian, there is a contradiction between the overseas clan and the land clan. They belong to the well and do not cross the river. What's more, the overseas Lingqiang clan has recently made a move to cross the border, extending its tentacles to the coastal areas. Moreover, after confirming that the person behind the scenes is Lingqiangzong, Yi Tian judges that the other party's attention to the rental house is very simple. He should have noticed that the aura of the rental house is very strong, but he didn't notice the spirit gathering array he arranged. After all, the spirit gathering array he arranged, even if it was placed in the square-inch spirit field, was of a relatively high level. Whether it was the Lingqiang sect or the rest of the land sects, the friars could not see it at all. They just thought it was a natural gathering place of spirit. They may even mistakenly think that there is a cave in the rented house, or that there will be a treasure of natural resources. Photo. However, for Yi Tian, these doubts can be solved as long as the person of Lingqiangzong is caught. He doesn't think much about them. Yuan Tianian opens his eyes and throws them at the mud pill palace of the landlord's uncle Meishin. Then, he runs his magic power to separate the blood color monster from it. Ma, who is he? At the same time, outside the ward, the couple of landlady's children looked at their mother nervously and asked. The two of them, who never believe in ghosts or gods, and who don't believe in strange things in the world, are standard materialists. After his father was ill, his mother was restless and thought that someone was murdering him, which made them both feel incomprehensible and resistant. Now, my mother brings a young man who looks like a college student to see my father. It makes them feel that my mother is just joking. If it wasn't for Yi Tian who said that it took only 2 minutes, and the doctor had checked it again, nothing could be found, but the father just couldn't wake up, and there was blood spilling along the nostrils and ear canals. They would never have come out of the ward with their mother. He is the tenant of our old house. The landlady looked into the ward and whispered to her children. Mom, are you crazy? To find a tenant to see my dad? If I remember correctly, he is a student of Nanhai University. Yes, Ma, isn't that nonsense? Dad is very sick, but you can't go to the doctor in a hurry. If he can't be cured, it's okay. But if he's in trouble, it will aggravate Dad's illness. What do you say to do then? As soon as they heard this, they immediately fried the pot and looked at the landlady and drank loudly. Although they don't know Yi Tian, they have heard from the landlady that there is a young college student in Nanhai University who is very brave. He is not afraid that their house is a vicious house. He rents it and pays it in time. He even plans to buy it. Aye. The landlord mumbled, but her heart also became uneasy. She worried that if Yi Tian could not cure his wife's illness, it would aggravate his illness, and that would be the end. Don't worry, Mr. Yi. He is very powerful. If he says there is a way, there must be a way. Lu Zhendong hears the sound and looks at them in a hurry, explaining for Yi Tian. Who are you? When they heard this, they looked at Lu Zhendong suspiciously, and when they saw him, their eyes were full of vigilance and conflict. There's no way. Lu Zhendong is very obscene, and his dress is also rogue. Although he washed his hands in the previous world, he still can't resist the strong smell of scum and hooligan. When he sees them, he feels that he is very rebellious. I'm Mr. Ye's younger brother. Lu Zhendong's eyes dribble around, but he doesn't know how to introduce himself. In the end, he can only bravely recognize Yi Tian as the eldest brother. Mom, listen to him. He's a college student. If he doesn't go to school well, he'll come out and fool around. There's a younger brother. Can he be a serious man? Mom, you're really mischievous. If you can see something wrong with this kind of unruly young man, call him out at once. Two people don't hear Lu Zhendong this words is good, I hear his words, in the heart completely flustered, complaining, can't help but say separately, then run to the ward door. Squeak. But when they came to the door of the ward was opened by Yi Tian from inside. You. When the landlord's son saw Yi Tian, he was about to question him angrily. But when he just said a word, he saw that the landlord's uncle, who had been paralyzed on the hospital bed and was in a coma, had just woken up. He was sitting on the hospital bed and looking at him. He was stunned, and then said happily, "Dad, how did you wake up?" "Dad, you're awake." Not only him, but also the daughter of the landlady was surprised. Looking at the father sitting up, she exclaimed in disbelief. Old companion. Landlord Ansi, also stumbling toward the ward, and then tightly hugged the landlord uncle, a snot, a tear. The young couple always accompany each other. When the landlord's uncle was in a coma, she was really worried about what happened to her old companion, leaving her alone in the world. Looking at this scene, the children of the landlady can't help but wipe their tears. Looking at Yi Tian's face, they are full of embarrassment and shock. Embarrassment is, they just scold mother of those words, must be Yi Tian to hear. The shock is that Yi Tian, who is so young and doesn't go to school well at first sight, took only 2 minutes to wake up his father, who tried all kinds of resuscitation methods but didn't wake him up. He even let him sit up. The amazing contrast between the former and the latter makes them feel shocked. Uncle just woke up, I'm sure I'm flustered. You can talk with him and relax. Later, remember, don't look at people because of their age and appearance. For uncertain things, you should not deny and question them first, but ask them clearly and think about them first. Yi Tian looks at two people, light a smile, then dodged to get out of the way into the ward. He knew that although their words were not pleasant to hear, they were not malicious. They were just worried about their father's illness and could understand. Sorry, Mr. Yi, thank you. Yi Tian this words, let two people hate can't find a crack to drill in, to Yi Tian's sincere apology, and thanks, this just hurried into the ward, a family of 4 embraced together, tears. The method of Lingchong's sect is really too vicious. It can compete with Disha's sect. This sect, which regards people's lives like weeds, doesn't deserve to exist in this world. Yi Tian listens to the cry in the ward and shakes his head slightly. The evil of these two sects is beyond his imagination. He is even a little lucky at this moment that the Dharma practiced by the sects on earth is incomplete. If not, in case the two sects build a golden elixir, they will treat all secular people as slaves. Zhendong, why are you? At this time, Lu Zhendong's wife holding the child also appeared in a hurry in the corridor, just as Lu Zhendong said hello, and then saw Yi Tian, immediately with the daytime to see a ghost-like, eyes show hard to hide fear, scream and quickly back. Xiaodong, it seems that I'm not very popular with your family. Yi Tian sees Lu Zhendong's wife's appearance, picks his eyebrows and looks at Lu Zhendong's taste. Don't worry, Mr. Yi. I'll teach her a lesson. Hearing the speech, Lu Zhendong quickly nods his head and bows to Yi Tian to make amends. Then he rushes to the middle-aged woman, grabs her arm, stares at her eyes, and gnashes his teeth and says, Chen Fei, I tell you, at the end of the day, only Mr. Yi can save our family now. Don't give me any disrespect. I just saw with my own eyes that he cured a man like us. Hearing this, Chen Fei looks at Yi Tian in horror. Then she looks at the child in her arms. Holding him, she walks to Yi Tian in a trembling way. Since she experienced the last thing in the hospital, her fear of Yi Tian is really in her bones. At that time, she had a feeling that as long as Yi Tian wanted to, she could die without being buried. That fear even let her have a long time, dare not come to the hospital, for fear of meeting Yi Tian again. Mr. Yi, I'm sorry. Chen Fei walks to Yi Tian and looks at him. She shivers and falls to the ground with her legs soft. She kowtows to Yi Tian repeatedly. Then she puts her baby on the ground with a runny nose and tears and says, I know you don't look up to me and think I'm an eyesore, but the child is right. You don't save me. Please, save the child. Do you still think your children are treasure and others' children are grass? Yi Tian looks at Chen Fei and says faintly. He could see that Chen Fei's face was no longer the proud and reserved color she had seen last time, but was replaced by vicissitudes and uneasiness. It was obvious that her life was not very happy during this period of time. It was estimated that she had suffered a lot from physical and mental exhaustion. I'm sorry. Chen Fei sobbed and sobbed, her cheeks full of sad color. This time her family had an accident, which made her fully understand that if she did too much evil, she would be punished sooner or later. During this time, she has been eating fast and praying for her children every day, hoping to get rid of the miserable life as soon as possible. What's more, she regretted what she had done in the past and went out to find people who had been bullied by her before to make amends. Get up and do more good in the future. Yi Tian sweeps her eyes at Chen Fei. After shaking her head, she says faintly, Mr. Yi, please, save the child. From now on, we will be willing to let you be a cow and a horse. Chen Fei doesn't get up, but kowtows to Yi Tian and cries for help. This kind of being manipulated, precarious days, led her panic to the extreme. If only she and Lu Zhendong, that's alright, it is their too deserved retribution, but the child is innocent, he did nothing wrong, should not live such a life. Mr. Yi, please, help the child. When Lu Zhendong heard this, he fell down on his knees in front of Yi Tian with a look of remorse and supplication. I just want you to get up and say I won't help you? Yi Tian shook his head with a bitter smile, but said, Mr. Yi, are you really willing to save our family? Lu Zhendong heard the sound, happy voice, his face cannot believe. Before that, Yi Tian said he was willing to help him. In fact, he was still very worried. After all, Yi Tian knew what he had done before and worried that he would not help him because of those things. He let his wife and children come over, just hope, Yi Tian can help his wife and children. As for himself, a rotten life, even if Yi Tian does not save, let him die, he also admitted. But he didn't expect that Yi Tian was willing to help him. Don't you think so, brother? Yi Tian picks eyebrow to smile, looking at Lu Zhendong light way. Lu Zhendong made mistakes in the past, but it was just a trifle. He didn't really make much noise. After all, Nanhai is a small city, and he won't say that there are murderers and arsonists. Moreover, he has now repented and washed his hands. To sum up, Lu Zhendong is a villain, but he is not a villain who has to die. Yi Tian is not the kind of person who is either black or white. Therefore, he doesn't mind pulling Lu Zhendong to make the world a better person. Of course, he has the same attitude towards Chen Fei. Lu Zhendong opened his mouth and didn't know how to answer. He was full of anxiety and hope. I don't know how to make a joke. It seems that you are really not suitable to be the boss. In the future, live your life honestly and don't do any pickling. Otherwise, I will know you. Believe me, this time you are only a child. Yi Tian looks at Lu Zhendong's appearance, smiles, light way. Thank you, Mr. Yi, thank you, Mr. Yi. Lu Zhendong smell speech, and his wife look at each other, immediately toward Yi Tian more than kowtow. Well, that's it. Being a good man is better than thanking me 100 times. Yi Tian swings his hand at will. Yuan Tian's eyes shine through. He quickly locks on the blood color monster at the three-mouth mud pill palace of Lu Zhendong's family. Then his magic power surges and peels the monster out of their bodies like a cocoon. Then he lightly rubs it, and a firelight splashes and burns it to ashes. This scene made Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei dumbfounded, and both of them were a little silly. Fire in the palm, a move in the hand, flying insects from their bodies, this is not all magic magicians and immortals can do it? But they can feel that Yi Tian is not juggling. After the insect flies out of their body, they feel that their body has become a lot more relaxed, with a sense of relief. Xiaoming, how do you feel? Closely following, Chen Fei turns head to look at Sun in a hurry, urgent voice way. I don't feel so heavy, but I'm sleepy and want to sleep. The little guy nodded and shook his head again. He looked at Yi Tian and said in a small voice. Mr. Yi. Lu Zhendong smell speech, immediately nervous incomparable toward Yi Tian look. Don't worry, he is too young. The insect he just took out has damaged his spirit. Now he takes it out and feels relieved. It makes him feel tired, so he is tired. Just have a rest for a few days. Seeing this, Tian waved to Lu Zhendong and explained. Thank you, thank you. We swear that we will be a good man and never do bad things again. Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei smell the speech, look at each other, then involuntarily, immediately kneel down to the ground again, kowtow to Tian again and again, and swear one by one, vowing to Tian to change the evil and return to the right. Lu Zhendong, in particular, was in tears. His lower lip was bleeding. He raised his hand and slapped himself a dozen times. He really didn't expect that Tian helped him regardless of any reward, especially when he knew what he had done in the past. The more so, the more regret he felt for what he had done. If he had not done those things at the beginning, those people would not have found him, and the 3 members of their family would not have been worried. I'm afraid, if it's not for Tian, those guys, I'm afraid they won't use him as a dead man this time, they will never stop. I hope you remember what you said today. Tian smiles and nods, indicating that they don't have to be so polite to stand up. Boy, you didn't give up and ran here? Well, I said you can't buy that house, you just can't buy it, right? Is that bad old lady going back on her word just then? The elevator in the corridor suddenly made a sound. Last night, the 2 young people came out of the elevator with a middle-aged man. When they saw Tian Ho, one of the young people immediately sneered. While he spoke, the middle-aged man beside him looked at Tian, and then his eyes fell on Lu Zhendong's husband and wife. His eyebrows suddenly wrinkled and he said coldly, "You two, forget what I said? What are you doing here if you don't help me? Mr. Yi, it's him who forced me to come out, it's him who forced me to drive you out." As soon as Lu Zhendong saw the middle-aged man, he immediately felt as if he had seen the devil. His body trembled, and he took a step back. When he got close to Tian, he had some support, but he was still very frightened. Not only Lu Zhendong, but also Chen Fei is holding the child tightly, retreating, shivering all over. Obviously, the couple, in the hands of this guy, probably suffered a lot. Mr. Yi? It seems that you two have found something new to rely on, but do you think he can protect you? After hearing Lu Zhendong's words, the middle-aged man glanced at Yi Tianxia, looked at Lu Zhendong playfully and said faintly, "It seems that you haven't suffered enough. You have to add more to make you have a good time. Oh, by the way, you love your son very much. As the saying goes, the father owes the son. Since you are disobedient, let your son suffer for you." Words fall, middle-aged eyes appear strange color, fingers gently hooked too. Well. But to the middle-aged people's surprise, his fingers are moving, but the child in Chen Fei's arms is shrinking in Chen Fei's arms and looking at him in horror, but there is not a trace of pain on his face. No way. How could that be? The middle-aged man stared at Chen Fei's baby for a few eyes. He murmured in disbelief and immediately moved his fingers gently to arouse the blood color monster again to create pain for the little guy. But strangely, no matter how he flexed his fingers, they didn't work at all. This incredible scene makes the middle-aged people look changeable. They want to change their targets and start with Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei. They want to arouse the blood color monsters in their bodies and convey their fear to them. But to his surprise, even Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei did not respond to his actions. It was just like the blood color insects he planted in their bodies had evaporated and disappeared out of thin air. No way, it's absolutely impossible. At the moment, the middle-aged man's expression has completely changed. The calm color on his face has dissipated, and his eyes are constantly scanning Tian's face. Although he didn't know what was going on, he was sure that all this had something to do with the young man in front of him. However, he really can't believe that a guy who looks so young has the ability to remove the blood color monster from Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei. And different from his shock, Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei look at each other. In each other's eyes, there is a strong color of ecstasy. Before that, Tian took out the blood color monster. Although it made them feel much more relaxed, the pain brought by the blood color monster was so deep that they were still worried. But now, the middle-aged people's actions are obviously manipulating the insects in their bodies to inflict pain on them, but they have no response, which shows that Tian really cured them completely. From then on, they no longer have to worry about doing things against their will in that terrible pain. Don't waste your time. Even if you break that finger, they won't react. At this time, Tian glanced at the middle-aged man, light way, tone with fun and ridicule. It's you? It's impossible. The middle-aged man shook his head again and again, still can't believe that this hand is what people of Tian's age can do. It's just the technique of controlling insects. Do you think it's something as difficult as heaven? I'm tired of the methods of overseas Lingchong sect. Tian sniffed and sneered, looking at the middle-aged man coldly. Do you even know the overseas Lingchong sect? The middle-aged man lost his voice completely, looking into Tian's eyes, full of shock and disbelief. Can you people from overseas Lingchong sect say something else? Tian was helpless and shook his head. Every one of the overseas Lingchong sect people, when they were told their identity by him, was like this when they saw ghosts in broad daylight. However, he also understood that the overseas Lingchong sect was very mysterious. Most mountain people didn't know that there was such a sect. These people were furtive, but they were easily pierced by him. Naturally, they felt that things were out of control and became nervous and panicked. Whoosh! Whoosh! When the middle-aged man heard that Tian had broken the overseas Lingchong sect, he knew that although Tian was very young, he might not be his opponent at all. Without any hesitation, he raised his hands and flew to Tian with the whistling wind. All of a sudden, strange insects, with a strong fishy wind, hit Tian. The smell, just smelling it, made Lu Zhendong and Chen Fei feel sick. Their heads were as big as a fight. Obviously, many of them were terrible poisonous insects. Not only that, at the moment of throwing this kind of poisonous insect, the middle-aged man swept back and wanted to escape from here. Insect carving skills? Tian sneers and shakes his head. With a flick of his hand, a flaming fireball suddenly emerges in the corridor. Creak! 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 In an instant, a crowd of poisonous insects were all burnt into vermicelli by Tian. With a strong smell of scorching, they turned into black toner and scattered all over the ground. You! The middle-aged people's eyes are almost straight. They are extremely frightened. They can escape faster. But unfortunately, his speed is not comparable to that of Tian. At the moment of killing all the poisonous insects, Tian's body was slightly shaken, and then disappeared in the same place. The next second, his figure appeared next to the middle-aged man. He gently put his hand on his shoulder, pulled him back, and at the same time, hit him in the other's dantian. Bang! The palm wind is strong, and the middle-aged man falls to the ground. At this moment, the chi of the cultivator that emanates from his body dissipates rapidly. My accomplishments! The middle-aged man howled bitterly, trying to stop him, but he couldn't resist. You, watch him, don't let him run away. Tian didn't even look at the middle-aged man half an eye, so he turned and walked to the door of the ward, tapped twice, then pushed open the door of the ward, looked at the landlady, and said with a smile, Aunt, the trouble has been solved now, can you sell the house to me? Of course, even if it's for you, I'd like to. Landlady Busy repeatedly nodded, grateful, way. If it wasn't for Tian, her wife would never wake up, and according to the other party's cruel means, even if she chose not to sell the house to Tian, but to give it to the other party free of charge, the other party would not let them go so easily. If she didn't squeeze out the last drop of oil and water from them, she would never give up. At that time, she would surely be short of money and people. It's still the price originally agreed. There's no need to change it. When Uncle's condition is better, you can contact me and let's go through the transfer procedures. If you need anything here, please call me at any time. Tian shook his head with a smile and said. He helps the landlady, not to sell the other party's personal favor and ask her to give her a lower price. He is not short of money, not to mention the total price of the house is only a few 100,000, even millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions. He will not take such a small advantage. Of course, no matter now or at the beginning, he has never been a helper. After helping others, he always thought about how to let others know his kindness and repay him people. What he did was very simple, but he just couldn't get used to it. If you don't like middle-aged people who think they are mountain people, you can be unscrupulous and treat ordinary people as mole ants. Soon, Tian bid farewell to the grateful landlady and asked Lu Zhendong to escort the middle-aged man back to his rented house. Don't you see it here? Then have a good look carefully. After entering the courtyard of the rented house, Yi Tianxiao was overthrown by Lu Zhendong. The middle-aged man on the ground glanced at him and said, "Now, frankly, why do you want this house? And why are your overseas Lingchongzong so active recently and start to extend their tentacles to the land? The aura here is very abundant. I like it here, and Nanhai is a small town. I don't think there are any powerful mountain people, so I want to build a stronghold here and become the foothold of our overseas Lingchong sect on land." The middle-aged man now knows that in front of Yi Tian, he is no different from mole ants. It's useless to hide the truth. After a bitter smile, he slowly tells the truth. But at the end of the speech, his tone is full of regret. He thought Nanhai was a small city, and he wandered around and found that there was no sign of strong mountain people. So he began to be unscrupulous, to cultivate power, to find a place full of spirit, and to establish a stronghold. He wanted to make a great contribution in the clan. After he found the house, a place full of vitality, he was not without a sense of vigilance. He went out of his way to find an intermediary to inquire about it. When he learned that it was a college student who lived in it, and that the other party had gone to Haojiang for a tour, he began to be unscrupulous. But he can't think of it. Yi Tian, a college student who he thought was a soft persimmon, is extremely tough. If he had known that, he would never have dared to come here even if he had lent him 100 courage. Sure enough, Yi Tian nodded slightly and did not doubt the middle-aged man's guess. After all, as long as you are a mountain person, you can feel the extraordinary aura of renting a house. Moreover, the overseas Lingchong sect didn't know much about land affairs, so this guy had bad luck. He didn't know that he was in the South China Sea. After landing, he kicked a solid iron plate. And the second question? Immediately after, Yi Tian looks at the middle-aged man and inquires faintly. Compared with the middle-aged people's desire to rent a house, the second question makes him feel more curious. After all, overseas sects rarely land and are hidden so deeply that many mountain people do not even know that they exist in the world. But now, the overseas Lingchong sect is first Hong Kong Island, then the South China Sea, one city after another, which makes people curious. Their intention is to feel that they have accumulated enough strength to overthrow the Land clan, so they landed abruptly, or there is something else to hide. I don't know. When the middle-aged man heard Yi Tian's words, he was perplexed and shook his head. You don't know? Yi Tian picks his eyebrows and glances at the middle-aged man. I warn you, you'd better be honest with me. If Mr. Yi asks you anything, you'll answer honestly. If you dare to hide the truth, I'll see how to deal with you. At this time, Lu Zhendong is also looking at the middle-aged, gnashing his teeth threat. In the middle-aged man's hands, he suffered too much, and there was a lot of resentment in his heart. If it wasn't for Yi Tian's promise to abandon evil and turn to good, he would have beaten the goods just now, but even so, when he saw the other party's dishonesty, he still had an impulse to start. I didn't lie to you. I really don't know why. Our Lingchong sect used to stay overseas. Even if we came to land, we would go to places where there are many strange insects, such as Yungue. But we just stayed for a while, and then we would leave. The middle-aged man shuddered, then looked at Yi Tian and said nervously, but recently, our lord suddenly did not know why, and began to dispatch us. Some people wandered around the sea to explore some uninhabited islands and mysterious places on the sea, while others boarded the land to open up strongholds. I'm just following orders. I really don't know why. Some people wander on the sea to explore uninhabited islands and mysterious places, some people land to open up strongholds. When Yi Tian heard this, he frowned slightly. He felt that he was familiar with what Lingchongzong had done. I think you are really looking for death. You are not honest up to now. Are you going to let me give you 3 knives and 6 holes before you tell the truth? Lu Zhendong saw Yi Tian frown, thought he was dissatisfied with the middle-aged people's answer, immediately pointed to the middle-aged people drink, issued bursts of threats. Even if you kill me, I know so much, unless you want to listen to lies. The middle-aged people have completely opened their eyes to Lu Zhendong's threat, and they are not aware of it. Damn you! Lu Zhendong, furious, raised his feet and was ready to give the middle-aged people some relief. The Comer! But at this time, Yi Tian's eyes suddenly changed, and an idea suddenly appeared in his mind. There is almost no difference between the situation of the overseas Lingchongzong and what the descendants did after they occupied the body of the prisoner. The only difference is that one chose the killer organization of the prisoner and the other chose Lingchongzong. Mr. Yi? Lu Zhendong looks at Yi Tian in bewilderment, and then says respectfully, "Do you think this guy is dishonest? Do you want me to help you clean him up?" He didn't lie. He really didn't know why. Yi Tian waved his hand, indicating that Lu Zhendong didn't have to take care of him. Then he looked at the middle-aged man and said, "You Lingchongzong, have you seen anything strange recently, or before this change?" Strange things? The middle-aged man thought hard. First he shook his head, but then he said, "If there's something strange, there's only one thing. Our Lingchong sect has found a training site on the bottom of the sea. Our ancestors have taken people to explore it. All the people who went with him have died, and he is the only one who survived. Now all the things I do are arranged after he comes back." Sure enough. Yi Tian hears the sound and his eyes are bright. The so-called vestige of cultivation is very likely the array of the Comer. The dead man failed to come and turned into a monster. Only the ancestor of the spirit bug succeeded in coming and the spirit body replaced his spirit. But what Yi Tian can't be sure is whether the existence that came to the ancestor of Lingchong is the same as the group of Tiangong. Of course, in addition, there is another possibility, that is, what Lingchongzong found on the bottom of the sea is indeed a training relic. Just as it happens, in the training relic on the bottom of the sea, there is a powerful spirit body, and then the dove occupies the nest of magpie, occupying the body of Linking Laozu. What's more strange than the things you've arranged for you to do? For example, what changes have taken place in his character, words and deeds? Thinking of this, Yi Tian asked the middle-aged again. How do you know? The middle-aged man looked at Yi Tian tremblingly, almost doubting that he was also a member of Lingchongzong. I'll ask you a question. You're not qualified to ask me a question. Yi Tian said indifferently. Great changes have indeed taken place since Laozu came back from the relics of underwater cultivation. One of the most obvious changes is that he suddenly stopped eating fish. No matter what fish he was, he didn't touch it at all. He even hated the food made by those fish very much. The middle-aged man trembled and said in a hurry. No fish? What's the difference between eating coriander and not eating coriander? Yi Tian was speechless for a while, but his eyes suddenly changed. You know, Lingchong clan is located overseas. Although the transportation of goods is developed nowadays, fish is still an indispensable food for people on the sea. Moreover, when these people grow up from a snack fish, they will feel uncomfortable if they don't eat fish. The ancestor of Lingchong went to the relics on the seafloor, and when he came back, he suddenly changed his appetite and stopped eating fish. This seems like a little quirk, but it can explain a big problem. Now the ancestor of the spirit insect must no longer be the ancestor of the spirit insect. I'm afraid it has already come, so I changed my appetite. Moreover, from this point, Yi Tian vaguely judged that the thing that the ancestor of the spirit insect was coming was bigger than he thought. Most of the monks who come down from Fengsuan spirit realm don't have this kind of quirk. The only possibility is that the spirit body that occupies the body of the ancestor of the spirit insect is not the one who comes down from Fengsuan spirit realm, but the spirit body that exists in the cultivation relics on the bottom of the sea. The spirit body exists in the remains of the seafloor and accompanies the fish, or sees something, or has some special feelings. Therefore, even if it occupies the remains of the ancestor of the spirit insect, it can't accept eating fish. However, what's wrong with the relics on the bottom of the sea? Is there a spirit? And where does this spirit body come from? It's a square-inch spirit realm? Or the ancient friars who once existed on the earth? Little thing, what do you want to know? Ask me, I can give you the answer. As long as you take me and steal once, let's go to work together and let others have a good look at our strength. At this time, the secret hand in the storage ring once again bewitched him. His tone was vulgar but mysterious, as if there was nothing he didn't understand. Not only that, but also as Yi Tianliao thought, this guy began to bewitch Yi Tian to take him to steal things, as if it had great attraction. But unfortunately, Tian has long been used to turning a deaf ear to his words, ignoring them at all. Instead, he continued to look at the middle-aged man and said, "How many other people are in Nanhai besides you? Or, how many people will come to the South China Sea recently? I've told Laozu what happened here. He should come to Nanhai in the next few days." The middle-aged man was a little silent, but looking at Tian's penetrating eyes, he finally chose to be frank and told the truth. After discovering Tian's rented house, in order to make himself stand out from many of his peers, he showed his face in front of Lingchong's ancestors, so he didn't hesitate to tell Lingchong's ancestors what he found, and boasted that there was plenty of aura, which was like essence. He suspected that there was an ancient cultivation cave or legendary aura under the rented house. But where did he want to get it? The aura here is caused by Tian's spirit gathering array. Moreover, before the old master Lingchong came, he was abandoned first, and became a real useless man. Lingchong is coming to Nanhai? When Tian heard the sound, his eyes suddenly brightened. As long as the other party comes, then the confusion in his heart can be easily solved. "Master, please spare my life. As long as you let me go, I will leave from the South China Sea immediately. I will never set foot here in my whole life, and I swear that I will never do anything wrong in the future." At this time, the middle-aged man kowtowed to Tian and prayed. He knew that once the ancestor of Lingchong came to Nanhai and found that his cultivation had been abandoned, and that he had been taken as a bait by others, he would be caught. Then it would be a cruel punishment waiting for him. Before the Lingchong ancestor appeared, he gave it to you. Remember, don't obstruct his contact with others, but if he dares to tell others what happened in the South China Sea, so that Lingchong ancestor doesn't come to the South China Sea, you can clean it up. Tian sweeps his eyes at the middle-aged man and looks at Lu Zhendong next to him. "Don't worry, Mr. Yi. I will take good care of him." Hearing this, Lu Zhendong was overjoyed. His eyes lit up and he nodded without thinking. Middle-aged people are almost not paralyzed on the ground, how can he not know? Lu Zhendong hate himself, he fell into his hands. Small life is certainly not lost, but it is necessary to suffer countless hardships. "Take him with you." Tian nodded at will, waved his hand to Lu Zhendong and said faintly, "Go." Lu Zhendong hears the news, bows to Tian and smiles. Then he pulls the middle-aged man from the ground and walks out of the yard like a dead dog. The wicked have their mill. Tian looks at their backs and shakes his head speechless. First, the middle-aged people tortured Lu Zhendong. Now, on the other hand, Lu Zhendong tortured the middle-aged people again. When the two left, Tian raised his hand and closed the gate of the yard. His mind moved and he released Taisui and his secret hand. What the hell is this? Damn it, how can it be such a bad thing? Pooh, 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 I'm going to vomit. Move it away quickly. The secret hand is very vulgar. When you put it out, when you see Taisui, the glove immediately stands up out of thin air, crawls aside with a few fingers of the glove, and the hole in the wrist mouth is also very vivid, as if you are really spitting. What's this weird thing? Taisui appeared, saw the secret hand, looked at it, lost voice. Look at this posture, the secret hand knows Taisui, but Taisui doesn't know what the secret hand is. You don't know your damn grandfather? When the mysterious hand heard Taisui's voice, it suddenly stopped, turned its head in doubt, and sent a voice to Taisui. Moreover, when it spoke, it also took a gnashing tone. It seemed to be extremely angry that Taisui could not recognize himself. What's so strange about grandfather not knowing his grandson? You look so ugly and wordy. It seems that it's a great honor to know you. Taisui is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Seeing that the secretive hand's attitude is so bad, he immediately attacks back angrily and scolds him repeatedly. Son of a bitch, it seems that you really don't remember your grandfather. Grandfather is your secret ancestor. The secret hand has a deep prejudice against Taisui. He pours at Taisui and clenches his gloves into fists. He smashes Taisui's head and face, and makes a lot of comments. Just for a while, his grandfather and his ancestor hear Tian's head. Secret? Your secret of Taisui was thrilled. Looking at the mysterious hand, he was shocked. It seemed that he was shocked by the appearance of the mysterious hand. But there is no doubt that Taisui's attitude shows that these two goods are definitely old acquaintances, and they have a long history. It's all you. It's all you who fucked your grandfather. I'm going to fight with you. The secret hand beats Taisui fiercely, but because it can't speak, it can only use Yi Tian's knowledge of the sea to communicate with Taisui. At this moment, Yi Tian seems to be the tool of these two things. I hurt you? What did I do to you? Taisui's jelly-like body also turns into fists, beating each other with the secret hand and yelling loudly. It seems that it can't understand why the secret hand's prejudice against itself is so heavy. You can't say it, you can't say it. The more he heard the secret hand, the more angry he was. His old fist was like raindrops, and he was throwing it at Taisui's body. It looked like he would never stop beating him to death. Stop it! Yi Tian was dazed by these two guys. He raised his hand and pushed them away. He said in a deep voice, "Tell me first, what's the relationship between you two?" "I'm his brother." When Yi Tian's words fall, Taisui and his secret hand immediately open their mouths at the same time. What's more, the secret hand has lost its head, the wrist is facing down, and the thumb and little finger are inclined in the palm. It looks like a person holding his hands in his chest. How dare you take advantage of me? Dog, how dare you say you are my brother? After that, the two goods heard each other's address, and immediately began to fight. You come and I go, not too happy. You say first. Yi Tian was speechless. He stretched out his hand and separated them. Then he turned his head and looked at Taisui. My brother and I. Taisui heard the news and said immediately, but as soon as his words fell, his secret hand said angrily, it's brother. Yi Tian stares at the past, and the secret hand retreats 2 steps, and no longer transmits sound. My brother, Baba, smelly brother and I were born together. I'm too old. It's secretive. At that time, we were wandering in the starry sky, eating and sleeping. We were very happy. One day, someone suddenly appeared next to us. Smelly brother stopped me and flew by himself. Who knows that it has become this dead virtue now? A shameless traitor, dare to say that I heard him seeing this. Taisui continued to talk about the cause and effect. At last, he trembled and wanted to beat the secret hand again. Taisui and Gimi were born together, which can be regarded as one. Yi Tian was surprised. He had never thought of this situation. He thought that the secret hand was a half-immortal soldier refined by others, but now it seems that it should be as old as Taisui. It was originally a living body, but it was refined into what it is now by the man it followed. As for the theory of betrayal, I'm afraid that the secret has become a secret hand, and I'm not willing to, so I scold Taisui angrily. You said I flew myself? A few fingers of the secret hand were almost red. They were gnashing their teeth. They twisted their gloves 7 times and 8 times. They said bitterly, it's you son of a bitch. You are so timid that you pushed me over. I push you? I think you've become a broken glove. You're out of your mind. At that time, who kicked me a few feet and rushed over crying and shouting? Taisui was angry and reluctant. He looked at the secret hand and gritted his teeth. But immediately, his tone was a little more complacent, and he said, however, good is rewarded with good, and evil is rewarded with evil. When you didn't let me go, I thought it was a pit for me, but now it seems that you have helped me. At least, I'm still what I used to be. It's you. Ha ha ha. When Yi Tian heard the speech, he shook his head with emotion and speechless. If Taisui's words are true, that secret hand is really bad luck. Originally, it was thought to be an opportunity, but it rushed out, but in the end, it couldn't even protect itself. It was tempered into such a half-immortal soldier and lost its original appearance. It's really hard to say whether it's good or bad. It's full of nonsense. I'll tear your mouth. Secret hand indignation incomparable, when even to rush to the position of Taisui. Come on, who's afraid of who? Taisui is so angry that he has to fight with the secret hand. Don't worry, tell me again, what happened at the beginning? Yi Tian sees this, raises a hand to stop these two guys, then looks at the hand of the secret way. It's true in the first half. We were born together, and then we wandered in the starry sky together. But in the second half, it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's a lot of bullshit. When we were traveling in the starry sky, we were targeted and wanted to collect. As a result, the smelly brother kicked me out and made me look like this. What's more, you're too old a name. It's bullshit to call you Disaster. Who can have a good ending if they get involved with you? Which one is not the big blood mold that has been poured out for 8 generations? After the secret hand stops, he is angry and unwilling to pour out bitter water to Tian. However, the message of the secret hand is quite different from that of Taisui. It is totally two extremes. In its story, Taisui is the real villain, which is unforgivable. You are my brother. You're bullshit. Taisui angrily counterattacks and becomes as vulgar as the secret hand. Disaster? Tian is not interested in the two people's mutual prevarication, but looks at Taisui and thinks deeply. Taisui is really not a good thing in Chinese mythology. Even now, if someone says life offends Taisui, it means bad times and many unpleasant things. If someone says groundbreaking on Taisui, it means provoking people or things that shouldn't be provoked and bringing disaster to themselves. Under such circumstances, it is not wrong to say that Taisui is a disaster. Not only that, but none of the masters who Taisui followed in the past came to a good end as long as their names were known. At least, the red-eyed devil who Tian knew died in Tian's hands. As for its former owner, Jodo, who died in the Dark Ages and didn't know whether to live or not, I'm afraid that even if he was alive, he was not a ghost. From this point of view, the secret hand is really right. Taisui symbolizes a kind of misfortune and misfortune. At this moment, Tian is even a little lucky that he and Taisui have released the blood contract. Otherwise, he may be defeated by it. Master, you can't believe his nonsense. Don't drive me away. I swear that it's not my fault that Master Joyo got me for 2 years and the Dark Age is over. It's nothing to do with me that the red-eyed devil died 3 months after he got me. Taisui Ru is aware of Tian's mind, wriggles his body, climbs to Tian's front, and sticks to his ankle tightly, crying. Listen to what you say, 2 years, 3 months, all like this, do you mean to say that you are not a disaster? The secret hand sneered, and the tone was full of ridicule. Not to mention the secret hand, Tian's heart is also full of hair. Now I think of it, I entered the field of life and death rhyme after I got Taisui, and I almost didn't lose my life there. What do you know, master? He is a man of great fortune. What can those two short-lived ghosts compare with? Taisui turned his head and roared angrily at the mysterious hand. Then he looked up at Tian, crying like a snibble and a tear, Master, you can't be fooled by him. He just doesn't want to see me better. If you listen to him, you will be fooled. Believe me, I will be useful and useful. If you don't want me, where can I go? I can only roam on the street alone, homeless, woo. Shameless thing, it's dead. Don't say you are my brother in the future. The secret hand was shown by Taisui to look silly. Just now, it was still mocking each other, and it made a voice angrily. I'm not your brother, I'm your brother. Hearing the sound, Taisui stopped crying and turned around with a vicious sound. His secret hand was so angry that his gloves were shaking. His wrist was facing up. When he moved his finger, he would rush to Taisui. He would give him some color to see. Well, don't make any noise. Tian was completely defeated by the two brothers. He shook his head speechless, and then said to Taisui, Don't worry, whether you are suffering or Taisui, I won't throw you away. I knew that the master was kind-hearted and would not abandon me and leave me behind. Taisui is crying. He even looks like a little chestnut. He rubs his legs and wipes his eyes with his 2 front legs. That's gratitude. As he said, Taisui itself is a kind of mystery. As for the so-called misfortune, it's probably just a kind of rumor. Tian never believes in these things, and he also thinks that whether a person's own death or not is not decided by a small Taisui. You'll regret it. The secret hand, Jia, smiles strangely and sends a sound to Tian. I'll bite you to death. Taisui is angry and shows his teeth to his secret hand. He will rush over and tear it to pieces with his sharp teeth. It tickles me, it tickles me, ha ha ha, I'm itching to death. But before he was too old, his secret hand suddenly collapsed on the ground. A few fingers were rubbing against the ground crazily. It was like never giving up without grinding his fingers. But this guy is really very talkative. Even in this situation, he has not forgotten to sound to Tian. What's the matter with smelly brother? Before I touched you, you fell down. It's the same for the good. You didn't learn how to touch porcelain. The bad one didn't fall down. Besides the dirty mouth, you also learned how to touch porcelain? Taisui watched the mysterious hand warily, stopped and asked questions in confusion. Ouch, ouch, haha, it tickles me, it tickles me, it tickles me, please, help me. At the moment, the situation of the secret hand is very strange. The sound it sends to Tian is clearly with laughter, but the gloves are madly rubbing on the ground. That's all. In its words, there is a tone of pain and begging. It felt like it was suffering from something worse than death. Please, help me, haha, I'm itching to death, ouch, 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 ouch. The secret hand keeps begging, and the voice is more and more miserable. In the end, it can't transmit the complete bite, but can only send out the intermittent sad notes. It can be said that it is more miserable than ever. Master, what's the matter with you? Taisui also responds at this time. What's wrong with the secret hand? He asks Tianhu to get the answer. I haven't stolen anything for a long time. My hands itch badly. Tian looks at the appearance of the mysterious hand and speaks slowly. At this moment, he has understood the reason why the secret hand has become what it is now. The answer is very simple. Just as he thought in his heart, the secret hand is very powerful, but there is a big loophole in it, that is, it doesn't know where there is a defect, which leads to a change. Once it hasn't stolen for a period of time, it will hurt suffering and tolerance. Cheap hand. Why don't you do it? You have to steal it. After a long time, you even have to scratch your hands on the ground. Pooh, 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 brother, I've lost my people. Hearing this, Taisui despised the secret hand and even spat at it. He was angry and sad. Oh, please, ha ha ha, please. At the moment, the secret hand has no intention of fighting with Taisui. A few fingers are rubbing wildly on the ground. The force is so strong that it marks several deep marks on the concrete floor. If it is not a Banksianbing, it must be worn bald now. Tian turns a deaf ear, as if completely unaware of the mysterious hand. Help me, I'll give the little evil animal a complete mind of the great dream. What do you want to know? I'll tell you. The secret hand is extremely miserable, and constantly bewitches Tian, hoping that he can raise his hand and give himself a way to live. But it's a pity that Tian Zhen didn't pay attention to it and let it struggle on the ground. The secret hand is very evil, and this guy seems to be an old fish. If he doesn't temper his temper well, he just asks twice and chooses to help him, he will be difficult to control and even be used by him in the future. Call brother, I'll help you, beg the master. Taisui slipped to the side of the mysterious hand, took his paw to kick it twice, rubbed his front paw, and rubbed his way. You dream. Even if I itch to death, I will never fulfill your wish as a son of a bitch. The secret hand has a lot of backbone. Even now, it refuses to let go. Then you itch to death. Taisui was so tired that he felt itchy, but he wandered to one side with an indifferent look. He was just like a real chestnut, licking his front paw with or without a touch. Tian was speechless. This guy, the play is really enough. Please, help me, ouch, ha ha ha, brother. Please help me. It seems that the secret hand can't resist the terrible itching at all. It rubs wildly on the ground. In the end, the fear of pain overcomes the resentment of Taisui. It chooses to change its tongue. It struggles and crawls with a few fingers. When it comes to Taisui, it grovels and flatters the messenger. Taisui turned over, licked his front paws, and said lazily, hello, brother. Your uncle. The secret hand was furious and scolded. Looking at Taisui, he could only plead, good brother, dear brother, please, help me, I don't want to die. Brother, wait. Taisui nodded his head. Then he got up lazily, went to Tian, held his ankle, and said with a flattering face, "Good master, please, help smelly brother. Although he is cheap and smelly, he is my brother anyway. I can't watch him live or die master, just give me face and help it." With that, Taisui winked at Tian, indicating that if he had any request, he could just mention it to help mediate. Taisui has been following Tian for some time. He knows that Tian certainly doesn't want to miss such a half-immortal soldier. The reason why he ignores the secret hand is just to sharpen his temperament. "Good brother, good master, please help me ouch, I'm itching to death." The secret hand is half dead by Taisui's call, but it's really itchy. He can't help rubbing his fingers crazily on the ground, while he's whispering to Tian and Taisui for help. "You've been following me for so long. I'll sell you face and help your brother." Seeing that the fire was almost finished, Tian looked at Taisui, then looked at the mysterious hand and said, "But if you want me to help you, you have to answer 3 questions, and you have to say everything." "I must say everything, master, help me." The secret hand was overjoyed. Like a chicken pecking rice in a hurry, he pointed his wrist holes wildly. "Can I believe it?" Tian is not in a hurry to help, but looks at Taisui first. "Secrets involve a lot of privacy matters. I'm most afraid of swearing. If someone swears and goes back on it, there will be nothing. But if it goes back on it, it's very likely that the oath will become a reality." Taisui nodded quickly and gave a positive answer to Tian. Secret hand hate fingers are twisted into a ball, wish to live to strangle Taisui. "Then you will swear that if you dare to lie, you will suffer this pain every day." Tian stares at the mysterious hand, immediately full face pondering smile, "Way." Hiss. Taisui takes a breath and looks at Tian with admiration. He just thinks that his hand is too poisonous, the secret hand is afraid to die of this strange itch. Once he makes a vow and goes back on his promise, even if there is only 1 in 10,000 probability that it will become a reality, it will definitely make the secret hand dare not fight, but choose to be honest. The secret hand is also shivering all over the body. This terrible pain, once a few days, is enough for people, let alone once a day. Why, don't you? If you don't want to, forget it. But I think it's better for you to endure this situation. As long as you get through this, maybe you won't be afraid of this torture in the future? Tian looks at the appearance of the mysterious hand, pick eyebrow a smile, light way. "I swear, if I dare to lie, let me bear this pain day by day." The secret hand was extremely resentful, but it had no choice but to make an oath. "Deal." Tian raises eyebrows and smiles. Immediately, he takes out a spirit jade from the storage ring and throws it to Taisui. Then he reaches out and picks up the secret hand from the ground and puts it on his hand. "Ha!" As soon as the secret hand was put on, Tian immediately felt that along the bottom of his heart, there was a strange call, a faint agitation, which was passed from the secret hand to the whole body, and his fingers became itchy. That kind of itching, very strange, concentrated on the tip of the finger. It seems that if you can't get something in your hand, you can't stand it. This thing is really mysterious. Tian is a little tongue-tied. You need to know that he cultivates the idea of Sua Wangguan. His mind is extremely strong and tenacious. But now, he is easily bewitched by the secret hand. It can be seen how powerful this thing is to attack the mind. And this, or in the case of damage to the secret hand, Tian extremely curious if the secret hand is complete, this kind of invasion, and how strong, and what kind of person, can hold such a secret without interference. There is no doubt that he is absolutely the most powerful man in the world of cultivation. The great friars in Yupu realm may not be able to do it so easily. Maybe they need to be the top friars in Tiangong realm to do it. "Master, hurry up, I really can't stand it anymore." The secret hand kept trembling and begged to Tian. The voice of the divine thought was no longer calm, but trembled. It seemed that it had almost reached the critical point of collapse. If it didn't help, it would be crazy and demonized. "I see." Tian smiles indifferently, and in a moment, his hand looks down on Taisui. Hand out of the moment, Tian suddenly feel that his whole hand, at this moment, just like came to another strange space, incompatible with reality, incomparably mysterious. This glove is so weird. When Yi Tian was in Fangsuan Lingyu, he saw many strange magic weapons in Bangxianbing, and even had a real immortal soldier Dan stove. But those things didn't make Yi Tian feel so strange at this moment. Secret hand, these 4 words really deserve the name. Ha! And almost a second later, Yi Tian's eyes suddenly moved, feeling that in the palm of his hand, there was a mass of things. It's Lingyu! Yi Tian spread out his palm and looked at the palm of his hand. His face immediately showed a startled color. He didn't run into Tai Sui at all, and he didn't run the magic power, but he stole Lingyu from Tai Sui's hand unconsciously. This strange ability is really amazing. What's in your hands? Not to mention Yi Tian, Tai Sui is also surprised. To be exact, it is fried hair. In the real sense, it shows the appearance of a small chestnut. The snow-white hair on the back is blown up one by one, fluffy and fluffy, which shows the fear in the heart. Just now, he holds Lingyu and thinks it is well hidden. After Yi Tian steals Lingyu with the help of a secret hand, he also thinks Lingyu is still in his own hand. But now, when Yi Tian opens his hand and Lingyu appears, he realizes that Lingyu has disappeared. This strange ability is really too strong, even to the point of panic. Smelly brother, now so strong. Tai Sui trembled and looked at the mysterious hand warily. He was very creepy and worried about stealing any pieces from himself. I'm not a bad brother now. You should call me brother, and you're a good brother. Are you as strong as me? At this moment, the secret hand returns to normal, relapses, and begins to sneer at Tai Sui again, showing its strength and trying to reverse the brotherhood. Smelly brother, if I didn't ask for help from the master, would you have the present? Tai Sui is furious. Even if he wants to rush up, he will fight with the secret hand. Stop it. Stop it. Yi Tian has a headache. These 2 treasures are really big. Next, he took off the secret hand, but when he took off the secret hand, Yi Tian had a feeling of reluctant to part. He felt that he seemed to be infatuated with the feeling that when he stretched out his hand, what he wanted would fly into his hand. There is no doubt that this is the side effect of the secret hand. It has a strange ability that people can't help but become addicted to. If people have poor self-control, there is no doubt that once they use it, they will be infatuated with this feeling, bewitched by it and reluctant to take off the secret hand. Without any hesitation, Yi Tian quickly transferred the idea of Sui Huang Temple, thought about the sun, and cleared away the remaining bewitching thoughts in his body. The sun is like a wheel. It passes through the void and sends out spirit fire. In an instant, it burns all the strange ideas sprouting in Yi Tian's body into ashes and turns them into nothingness. It makes his ideas clear again, like a mirror hanging high, without any impurities. Sui Huang thought. At the same time, the mysterious hand sends a voice to Yi Tian, and makes an incredible exclamation. How can you know this method? Yi Tian was surprised that the secret hand knew a lot of secrets. The idea of Sui Huang Temple he cultivated was very mysterious. When he met many people who came, no one knew. But the secret hand could tell the truth. This was the first time in history. This method is very mysterious and powerful. The secret hand seems to be very afraid of this method. Slowly, and with attitude, all become respectful. Cut, I warn you, don't flatter the master doesn't eat this set. Tai Sui feels a sense of crisis from the attitude of the secret hand. He threatens the secret hand and looks at Yi Tian flatteringly. I didn't say that, but the man who made me look like this. Secret hand cold hum, and then to Yi Tian Wei, give you a little secret. Sui Huang view idea, is from the Earth Star, to square-inch spirit field. The idea of Sui Huangwen was really initiated by the ancient friars on Earth, and then spread to Fangsuan spiritual realm. The Leaf Day Here's speech immediately thoroughly confirmed this conjecture in the heart. You don't seem at all curious about the answer? The mysterious hand looks at Yi Tian in surprise. He thought that Yi Tian would be confused when he got the news, but he didn't expect that Yi Tian just nodded slightly to agree with him, and then there was no response. I've had such a speculation before. Your words just confirm my idea. Yi Tian answers faintly. Before that, when he was in the mirage, he discovered this secret. Unfortunately, Huashu only appeared a little and then dissipated. He did not answer his question, so that he did not get a definite answer. The words of the secret hand were just corroboration to him. That person didn't say, why is the idea of Sua Wangwen mysterious and powerful? Yi Tian hears the sound and asks questions to the mysterious hand. Is that the first question? The secret hand didn't rush to answer, but asked Yi Tian. It can count. Yi Tian Wenyan, slightly nodded, gave a positive answer. He said that this method involves the secret of immortals. Although there are many methods of Fengsuan spirit domain, none of them involves the secret of immortals. It's a pity that what he got at the beginning was only the secret method to cut off the cave. There was no further content involved. Otherwise, I think he would choose to do it again. The secret hand slowly opens his mouth, gives the answer, and tells us shocking news. You know, the secret hand is very supernatural. It must be extremely powerful to create it. So the powerful cultivation thought that if you got the complete idea of Sua Wangwen, you should choose to rebuild it. It can be seen that the value of this method has reached an immeasurable level. Of course, the answer of the secret hand also dispelled Yi Tian's idea of asking him about the complete idea of Sua Wangwen. No, I'll answer you a question for nothing. It's a big loss. It's a big loss. At this time, the secret hand also reflected, very unwilling to shake his head repeatedly, for his mistakes and chagrin. The second question, I want a complete big dream Brahma mind Dharma. Yi Tian ponders a smile, looking at the secret hand, asked a second question. The secret hand points a hole in his wrist, and without thinking, he tells a complete mental Dharma. This method is extremely mysterious. With a few words, there is a feeling of Hongzhong and Dalu, which is deafening and enlightening. It's shocking. And Xiao Lizi, who was called back by Yi Tian, is even intoxicated and shakes. When he takes a step, there is even a small golden lotus pattern along the sole of his foot. It's a little thing with a good aptitude. If the bald donkeys of Fanzong saw such a small evil animal, they would be more qualified than them. Every step of the way, the golden lotus is coming out. I don't know if they would be killed on the ground. The secret hand looked at the scene, speechless, full of rude words. Every step of the way is golden lotus. It is just the extraordinary vision that can appear when the very brilliant Buddhists of Fanzong are talking about scriptures. Only those with extremely high talent can appear when they are weak in cultivation. It's really shocking that Xiao Lizi shows such extraordinary skills now. Not only is it, but Yi Tian's face is also full of praise. Xiao Lizi is sincere, innocent and childlike, which is really a very suitable method for the cultivation of the Buddhist sect. What's more, he is also looking forward to how shocked and unbelievable his face will be when he takes him to Fengsuan spirit realm one day and brings him to those Buddhist monks of the Vatican sect. Both questions have been answered. Now it's your turn to ask the third one. At this time, the secret hand looks at Yi Tian, rubs his fingers, looks expectant, and wants to know what the third problem of Yi Tian will be. I want to know, do you know any way to live a second life without damaging the spirit body, and also to create a body that is exactly the same as the first one? Yi Tian was silent for a long time. Finally, he raised his head and looked at the secret hand. He asked slowly. The resurrection of spirit? I thought you would ask who my master is. The secret hand seems to be disappointed that Yi Tian asked this question, sighing and shaking the wrist hole. I'm not stupid. Some names, once called directly and perceived by him, will do me great harm but no good. Yi Tian smiles indifferently, looking at the mysterious hand, light way. I'm really careful. You must be from Fengsuan Lingyu. I believe you now. The four fingers of the secret hand bent and stretched, gave Yi Tian a thumbs up, and then said, however, it's a pity to disappoint you. The spirit body is weak, and it's not easy to damage the spirit body. If you want her to live another life, it should be the same as the previous life. Forgive me, I can't do it. Can't do it? Yi Tian smells speech, the look in the eyes, suddenly become lost. The secret hand knows a lot of secrets and has followed great people. If it doesn't know how to make the damaged spirit live out of the second person, I'm afraid there are very few people in the world who know this secret method. But just for a moment, Yi Tian's eyes became firm again. He must rescue Ning Yao. The secret hand has the best way. But if he has no way, he will go to ask someone to see if he can find an effective way. If he can't find it, he will explore and create it by himself. Even if there is only a trace of hope, for Ning Yao, he will never give up. Ha, I really have no way to make you nervous, but it doesn't mean there is no way at all. At this time, the secret hand suddenly laughed and said, I heard the man who made me say that in this world, there is a strange elixir called Sanqing Sanshur Lotus, which has a miraculous effect on the spirit body. If someone can put the spirit body in Sanqing Sanshur Lotus, even if there is only a wisp of memory left, it can be nourished, nurtured and restored as usual. Sansheng Sanshur Lian? Yi Tian frowned and thought hard, but he couldn't find any records of this lotus from his memory. You know, when he was in Fangsu and Lingyu, he was the emperor of Dan, and his attainments of Dan Dao were beyond imagination. There was no miraculous medicine he didn't know, but he had never heard of the three lotus. This lotus has gone beyond the category of miraculous medicine and can be regarded as a holy medicine. As for the place where it grows, it is even more mysterious. According to the man, it seems to be rooted in the starry sky. Only when one place is broken can it be born. It is the rebirth born out of the self-destruction of this scene that has the powerful ability to reshape the spirit body and develop the spirit body into the physical body. The mysterious hand can see Yi Tian's doubts, and immediately explains to him the mystery of Sanqing and Sanshur Lotus. It grows in the starry sky. Yi Tian was relieved when he heard that there were many secrets in the starry sky. Even when he was a great monk in Yupu realm, many areas in the starry sky were still places he did not dare to get close to. Otherwise, he would die. In those strange places, it is really possible to produce such a holy medicine. What's more, the saying of the secret hand is true. Only the newborn born from the destruction can have the powerful power of moistening the spirit body and restoring it to the physical body. It's true. After it left, when I was wandering in the starry sky, I saw a lotus. It's mysterious. I wanted to go by and travel with it in the starry sky, but unfortunately, it was only fleeting and didn't respond to me. However, I doubt that it has spirituality and has the ability to seek good fortune and avoid evil. I'm afraid it's very difficult to get it. Taisui thought a little, and also confirmed the words of the secret hand, and said that it had seen Sanqing Sanshur Lotus. Birth of a spiritual, and has the instinct of the elixir. Yi Tian was shocked, but also felt a thorny. According to Taisui and the secret hand, although Sanqing Sanshilian was right, the difficulty he wanted was really too big. However, this news, after all, still let Yi Tian feel happy. This is the first time that he has got a definite one. It is possible for Ning Yao to wake up without any damage and return to the past. This is absolutely a great joy. It may be very difficult to pick Sanqing Sanshur Lotus, but Yi Tian is willing to try his best. You didn't even ask yourself one of the three questions. You even asked one for the little evil animal. It's really beyond my expectation. At this time, the secret hand was surprised inside. He thought that Yi Tian's three questions would ask him about his origin, the way to leave the earth and return to the spiritual realm, or the way to quickly improve his cultivation. Yi Tian doesn't ask about the first two, but he can understand. After all, as long as you tell the names of some big people, they will attract attention and cause unnecessary trouble to themselves. But the third question, he really didn't expect that Yi Tian didn't ask. But this is also a strong expression of self-confidence, which shows that Yi Tian has a lot of confidence in himself. He thinks that even without the guidance of the secret hand, he is fully confident, so that his cultivation can be promoted to the original level as soon as possible. I don't need it. Yi Tian spoke faintly and looked calm. He has always been very clear about what he needs. To improve his cultivation, the idea of Suewan's view is to enter the country step by step. As for the elixir to improve his cultivation, I'm afraid there is no other person in the world who can know better than him. No need to the secret hand was astonished. This scene, even let it involuntarily thought of, will oneself refine into now this appearance of that person. He and Yi Tian are very similar. They are both similar in self-confidence and pride. They have great confidence in themselves. As long as it is something they have identified, no matter how difficult it is, even if it is a sea of swords and flames, the universe will certainly do it. I'm going to class. At this time, Tian looked at the mobile phone and said, Today is Monday. Wait a minute, there is Bing's class. He promised Bing, then we must keep our word and do what we say. Tianchen read a sweep, the secret hand in Taisui income storage ring, then drive toward Nanhai University. He hasn't come to the campus for some time. When he comes to the gate of the school, he feels as if he is separated from the rest of the world. Moreover, he is worried that he will be besieged by a large number of classmates as he did last time. Fortunately, Bing didn't lie. The students in the school obviously got Wang Hai's warning. Although they were obviously excited when they saw Tian Ho, they didn't surround him or take pictures of him with their mobile phones. This scene let Tian, involuntarily relieved, walked to the teaching building, found the classroom, sat in. I'll go, Yi. Why are you willing to come to class today? I said, how come there are so many new faces in the class? These are the girls who follow you to come to class and see people, by the way? A moment later, when Xiong comes into the classroom and sees Tian Ho, he exaggeratedly raises his hand and wipes his eyes. Then he sits next to Tian and shakes him. Get ready for class. Without waiting for Tian to open her mouth, Bing has come in. When she sees Tian in the classroom, she can't help but lower her head and curve her mouth slightly. She didn't expect that Tian was so attentive to his words that he said he would not be absent from his class, so he appeared in the classroom. Not our class students, please go out, don't affect the normal teaching order. Immediately after that, she found that there were many strange faces in the classroom, and 98% of them were girls. Many of them also took out a small mirror, took out lipstick and eyebrow pencil, dressed up there, and secretly looked at Tian. This scene made her eyebrows wrinkle, her face covered with a layer of frost color, and her tone was flat emotional toward those girls. The road. Ice Devil is famous in Nanhai University. Bing words fall, those girls immediately unwilling to go out of the classroom, but their eyes, but like a hook to Tian, seem to hate to hook Tian out. It's not a good thing if it's too good. You see, my sister-in-law is jealous. Xiong saw this scene, elbowed Tian, winked at him and said with a smile. When Tian heard this, he could not help but feel helpless. However, he could feel that when Bing called him last time, he really had a different feeling. That feeling, like a little girl in front of the boys, like coquetry, and, that tone, not like Bing usual, again obnoxious feeling. Does Bing like himself too? For a moment, Tian couldn't help being stunned, and an idea came into his mind. Thinking of this, he could not help but smile bitterly. Xin Luo God, Ning Shui, Bing, and gentleness, he found that he did not know when, he was already full of romantic debt. In this world, any debt is easy to pay, even if it is a human debt. It is not difficult for Tian. But it's hard to pay off the debt, especially for Tian. He has already blamed himself for accepting Xin Luoshan. He feels sorry for Ning Yao. It's more difficult for him to accept the feelings of these girls. And no matter Ning Shui or Bing or gentleness, there is no doubt that these are very good girls. He doesn't want to delay them because of himself. They can get more complete feelings. Leaves the leaves. Just when Tian was meditating, Xiong suddenly pushed his arm. Tian recovered, and then found that the eyes of the whole classroom were focused on himself. Moreover, he didn't know when Wang Hai appeared at the door of the classroom and was watching him with Bing. Looking at that, I think I called him many times, but he didn't respond at all. Emotional debt not only hurt people, but also hurt myself. Unexpectedly, with my strength, I didn't even notice seeing this. Tian couldn't help laughing bitterly, but he got up in a hurry and walked towards the door of the classroom. He wanted to know what specific things Wang Hai had to do when he suddenly came. Tian, it's like this. President Xi just called me and said that he would let you go to Yanda for a few days to exchange ideas, and then go overseas with the team of Yanda to participate in the strongest brainpower competition. When Wang Hai saw Tian, he laughed at him and said, so, I decided to send Mr. Bing, the front man of Nanhai University, to take you to Yanjing to experience the local conditions and customs of Yanhua University. A student in the past, but also with a lead teacher? Yi Tian is perplexed at hearing the sound. He is just ready to say that he doesn't have to, but suddenly, he understands Wang Hai's intention. As a team leader teacher, Yan Bing didn't take care of his daily life, nor was he a facade of Nanhai University. Instead, he transferred to Yanhua University to watch him and let him not be bewitched by Qi Chunsheng. Immediately after that, he saw that Yan Bing's eyes were stunned, but more joyful. Obviously, she is very concerned about this opportunity to travel with Yi Tian. Mr. Yan, Yi Tian is the treasure of Yanhua University. You have to take good care of him. Although Yanjing is good, the climate is too bad. It's always dry and not a good place to live. Unlike Nanhai, which is adjacent to the sea and a scenic spot, it's very beautiful. Wang Haiyu talks to Yan Bing with a long focus. He does not forget to belittle Yanjing and Yanhua University. He is afraid that Yi Tian will be dazzled when he leaves Nanhai and goes to the colorful world at the foot of Yanjing. He changes his mind and chooses to stay in Yanhua University. Okay, no problem. Don't worry, Headmaster Wang. I will take good care of Yi Tian. Without waiting for Yi Tian to say anything, Yan Bing smiles and directly takes over the task. Yi Tian wants to say something, but looking at Yan Bing's happy appearance, he can only sigh and nod in his heart, which is regarded as default. After all, Yan Bing will return to Zhongmen soon. At that time, there won't be much intersection between Yan Bing and him. Now Yan Bing is so happy, just think that this trip is a gift for her before she leaves. Horizontal and vertical, going to Yanhua University to participate in the competition, should not be the kind of thing that can make any sparks. Well, that's such a happy decision. Mr. Yan, you can continue to teach the students. I've made a reservation for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. After class, you can go back to clean up. We'll meet at the school gate at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll send a car to take you to the airport. Yi Tian, you stay first. Wang Hai saw that Yi Tian agreed, and his face was full of smiles. He nodded his head happily and waved his hand, indicating that Yan Bing could go back to the classroom first and leave Yi Tian. Master, I just saw that you are not in a good state of mind. Are you not feeling well recently? I've heard people say that I'm often in a daze. Maybe it's because I'm a little sick. I've soaked a lot of medicinal wine in my house. Would you like to have 2 bottles of them for you? Yi Tian thought that Wang Hai had something important to say when he left him. As a result, he came over, looked at Yi Tian mysteriously, looked left and right, then lowered his voice, muttered, and immediately said, Master, you are still young now, you don't know the value of your body. You should pay more attention, you can't be too tired, otherwise, you will come to me. I'm old enough to regret it. In a word, Yi Tian's face is about to turn green. What a wonderful apprentice, and what a wonderful headmaster, who even gave the master and the students some tonic wine. Sherfu, your face is too ugly. I'd better give you 2 bottles. They may be too few to have any effect. Wang Hai looks at Yi Tian's face and continues to say with experience. You can soak yourself in a jar and bring it to me. Yi Tian hears the sound and turns to look at Wang Hai with a cold smile. Ha ha ha, Sherfu, I'm just joking with you. Sherfu, you're as fierce as a wolf. I think so much about where I need some medicine and wine. Ha ha ha, it's a beautiful day today, blue sky and white clouds. We can't see this kind of weather in Yanjing, where we can only eat sand. The students of Yanhua University are really miserable. Wang Hai quickly hit a ha-ha, while not forgetting to continue to belittle Yanjing and Yanhua University. Yi Tian completely speechless, a wave of hands, cold way. With a smile, Wang Hai turned around and ran along the corridor. Yi Tian had a big head and raised his hand to rub his temple. Even though he is now a monk on the 6th floor of the cave, he has not been fainted by Wang Hai. What apprentice did he accept? Soon, a class is over. Students, let me tell you a piece of news. In the next few weeks, I may not be able to teach you anymore. There will be other teachers to take the place of you. When the class is about to end, Yan Bing looks around the field and looks at a group of students slowly. Mr. Yan, what are you going to do? Students heard, a burst of joy, but also a burst of silly eyes, doubts and questions. Happy because Icedevil is too terrible, the classroom management is very strict, a little absence is not good. Stupid because, although Yanbing is strict, the class is still very good, and such a beautiful teacher lecturing on the platform, no matter how to say, is a very eye-catching thing. In the next period of time, as a team leader, I will take Tian to Yanhua University in Yanjing for an exchange, and compete with the students of other schools in the country in the strongest brainpower competition. Ningxue slowly opens her mouth and tells the cause and effect. Oh. A language falls down, all people suddenly realize, and have a deep meaning to send out a sound, follow closely, the eyes are all focused on the next leaf day body, the eyes are full of cannot hide the color of pondering. You know, not long ago, the scandal between Yi Tian and Yanbing spread all over Nanhai University, and no student had heard the story between them. And Wang Hai's attention to Yi Tian is what all the students see. Now, Wang Hai arranges Yanbing to lead the team and leads Yi Tian to Yanhua University in Yanjing. Is this really a team leader? Or do you want your girlfriend to keep watch so that Yanhua University won't play a trick of beauty and rob them of Nanhai University's treasure? Yi Tian looked at the playful smiling faces, as well as the noise with ulterior motives, a bitter smile in his heart. Yi Tian, let's go. At this moment, Yanbing on the platform suddenly looks at Yi Tian, smiles and calls. This has been his ice-like cheek, a smile, immediately like 100 flowers bloom, so that the whole classroom, instantly amazing. Famous, face such as not a layer of eternal frost color Icedevil, even smile. What's more, she was smiling at a boy. All the students gaped and rubbed their eyes hard. I can't believe it. What I saw in front of my eyes would be true. In the roar of the students, Yanbing left with a smile. Yi Tian smiles helplessly at his classmates. He goes out of the classroom, goes back to the rental house, simply tidies up his things, puts a few pieces of laundry into the storage ring, and tells the cicada and Chen Qing a few words. Then he calls Lu Zhendong and tells him that he is going to Yanjing. If the middle-aged man receives the news that the ancestor of Ling Chong is coming to Nanhai, he will be broken. These three guys are not good things. The leaf day hears a sound, the facial expression immediately fiercely won Lin, the eye exposed the thick vigilant color. It's not only Yi Tian, but also Yanbing that something is wrong. In a moment, his eyes are eager to try. Now on the plane, there is Yi Tian, the supermaster, and she, the master. These wastes dare to rob the plane in front of them. What's the difference between that and looking for death? This plane has been controlled by us. Everyone stay in my seat and don't move. If anyone is disobedient and intends to mess around, don't blame us for being rude to you. At this time, along the cabin broadcast, came the voice of the robber. It is obvious that the robber who just entered the cockpit has now controlled the captain and co-captain in the cockpit. Everyone, immediately take out your valuable things and mobile phones and put them on the board beside your seats. Especially you first-class guys, take out all your videos and bags. If anyone dares not to cooperate. When the other two robbers heard this, they immediately put on a bloodthirsty smile. They took out two modified guns from the back of their waist and threatened the passengers in front of them. One of them suddenly grabbed the nearest passenger and lifted him directly from the seat. Then without thinking, a butt of the gun hit the passenger's head. In a flash, the passenger's head turned into a bloody gourd. The red blood ran down his cheek and fell to the ground. It looked terrible. Brush. Brush. Then, in the area connecting the first-class cabin and the ordinary cabin, the curtain was suddenly pulled open, and two robbers came out. Not only that, in the rear of the cabin, there were two robbers standing up, and in each of their hands, they were holding guns. The sudden appearance of this scene made the whole cabin in a mess. Every passenger was in a panic. Without any hesitation, they wanted to instinctively take out their mobile phones to call the police. But the next second, they were desperate. This is the sky above, no police, no special forces, only dominate their lives of the robbers. If they are not obedient, they will die. Don't be afraid. We are only for money, not for life. As long as you cooperate and obey, I promise you will be okay. Take out your mobile phones and valuable things immediately and put them on the table. However, I advise you to be honest and clean up your valuable things. If I find out who is playing tricks with me later, it won't be fun. At this time, a robber looked at a group of passengers in the cabin and said in a loud voice. After a word, the passengers were silent one after another. They took out their valuables and mobile phones and put them on the small folding board in front of them. After all, people who choose to make airplanes are generally well off. What the robbers want is money. It's no big deal to lose a little money. What's more, they are in the sky now. They can't work every day. If they are against the robbers, they will be tortured. You go to collect things, concentrate your cell phones, and destroy them all. Soon, one of the robbers nodded to the other with a beard, indicating to him to collect things. The bearded robbers nodded with a smile, then dragged 2 big bags and put what they had put on the folding board one by one into the sacks. A moment later, the bearded robber walked up to Tian, looked at the bare folding board in front of him, and after sweeping his eyes, he frowned and said coldly, "Boy, what's your stuff? What, are you going to challenge us and play tricks? Or are you going to try to see if your head is hard or the butt of my gun is hard? When I got on the plane, I didn't have anything with me. Oh, there's an iron ring. If you want it, I'll take it and give it to you." Tian, pretending to be afraid, looks at the robber with a beard and says something. He turns out his pockets first and asks the other party to make sure that each pocket is empty. Then he acts like he is going to pick the storage ring on his hand. Keep it for yourself. You are so poor that you even learn to be a first-class passenger. Can't you just sell iron by smashing the pot and buy a ticket with all your money? The bearded robber swept towards Tianxia. When he saw that his pocket was shriveled, and he really didn't pretend to be anything, he immediately sneered and scorned, which attracted the laughter of the other robbers in the cabin. Well, you found out. I told you, I worked 3 months to buy this ticket. But don't mention it. After I bought the first-class ticket, people looked at me differently. Many workers on the construction site thought that I was a rich second generation who experienced life. The cook's aunt also said that she would introduce her daughter to me. Unfortunately, she was too ugly. Tian sighed and said, "Ha ha ha." A group of robbers hear Tian's words, immediately grin. Not only the robbers, but also the passengers who were threatened by the robbers could not help smiling, and secretly admired Tian's courage. In front of the robbers, he even dared to say such a big call. However, this may be the so-called barefoot people who are not afraid to wear shoes. Be honest with me, don't you want to die? Seeing this, the bearded robber immediately showed a cold color on his face, pointed the gun barrel at Tian's head, and immediately yelled at the other passengers. Some of the situation in front of him was beyond his control. He did not expect that someone was so bold that he could talk and laugh at gunpoint as if nothing had happened. With a word, the passengers in the cabin immediately trembled. Tian also pretended to be afraid. His head was low and his legs were trembling. "Just sit down and don't piss your pants. I'll stink." Looking at Tian's appearance, the robber with beard laughs, presses his shoulder, and then presses him to the seat. Then he turns around and walks towards Yanbing. As soon as he saw Yanbing, the eyes of the robber with beard lit up immediately, followed closely, and showed a licentious smile along his face. When he got close to Yanbing, he raised his chin and said with a smile, "Beauty, have you taken out all your things? It's all on this. Take it yourself." Yanbing lightly toward folding board Yang Chin, Wei. She knows that Tian and she have the same idea now, that is, the location of these robbers is too scattered, and they are in the cramped cabin. Once they start, it's very inconvenient, and it's easy to hurt the passengers by mistake. Besides, if they use a little more force and damage the plane, it's a big problem. I'm afraid the whole cabin will not survive, come down a few. So, now she doesn't want to fight with these robbers. She tries to cooperate and find out the mobile phone. All of them? Beauty, I think you're joking with me. Look at your chest. It's bulging. There must be a lot of things hidden. Let me search your body to see what you've hidden inside. Whisker's eyes like a hook, toward Yanbing swept for some time, and then forced to swallow saliva, opened 5 fingers, to grasp Yanbing's chest. Such a beautiful girl, he has never seen a few in his life, let alone the opportunity to have a friendly opportunity. Now, when people are in heaven, these people has the final say in his life. He naturally needs to have a good addiction and taste the taste of a beautiful woman. Yan Bing's eyes are cold, and his eyes are immediately a little more murderous. Once the robber dares to act recklessly, he will start boldly. Search? I'll do it, but at this time, Tian suddenly stood up, laughing at Yan Bing, a greedy face, said, "This kind of thing, I am better at. This guy is not afraid of death. Not only do you want to save face and spend a few months' salary on first-class tickets, but also at this point of being robbed, you don't forget to take advantage of other girls." When everyone in the cabin heard Yi Tian's words, they were speechless. They didn't know whether Yi Tian was brave or wonderful. Not only the passengers, but also the bearded robber was stunned by Yi Tian's words. He drew back his hand and turned to look at Yi Tian. After sweeping him up and down, he sneered, "Boy, you are really not afraid of death, are you? It's not an old saying that peony flowers die, and being a ghost is also romantic. If you are timid, how can you be a romantic ghost?" Yi Tian smiles and rubs his hands. Then he looks at his beard sincerely and says, "Brother, give me this chance. I promise, if she's hiding something, I'll take it out for you. I'll help you for free. I don't ask you for money." The robber can't help but feel a little confused at the moment. He's never seen anyone who doesn't want to die, but he's never seen anyone who doesn't want to die for women. When I was robbed, I thought about how to take advantage of it. Even he felt that this young man was more suitable to be a robber than himself. "Brother, how about this? Let's let the beauty choose by herself and see who she wants to be searched. That's fair and just." Yi Tian's face doesn't know how to write. He happily picks Yan Bing's eyebrows. "Boy, you are very kind. Then I'll show you today, what is true seed." Hearing this, the robber with a beard stares at Yi Tian, then points his gun at Yan Bing with a sneer and says, "Didn't this kid say that you should pick someone to search? Come on, you can choose. Let's see which of us you want to search for you." Then he raised his gun and blew at the muzzle. The threat was self-evident. I chose him, he looks more handsome." Yan Bing has understood the meaning of Yi Tian, pretends to be shy, looks at Yi Tian, then lowers his head, and then whispers, "You are too ugly, and you still have a bad smell." Say words. Yan Bing also quietly toward Yi Tian pow a few eyes, small face red fluttering, like a spring heart sprouting appearance. "Damn you." The bearded robber was completely stupid. There are many wonderful flowers every year, but this year, there are really many. One is a smelly boy who is not afraid of hijacking and still wants to take advantage of others. The other is a silly girl who has a gun pointed at her head and has a mind to make a fool of herself. "Brother, you heard that. He is willing to let me search his body. Give me this opportunity." At this time, Yi Tian smiles at the bearded robber. Regardless of whether the bearded robber is willing or not, he walks towards Yan Bing's position, and raises his hands while walking. How can he see? How obscene, how brother pig. "Boy, I think you really want to die. Move again and give me a try." Bearded robber completely angry, can't help but say, muzzle a turn, directly in the Leaf Day's temple, ferocious way. "Don't mess around, young man. You've annoyed them. We'll have no good fruit to eat. It doesn't matter if you have an accident on your own, but it's a nuisance to everyone. If they don't look for you, we have to settle accounts with you." But just then, along the corner of the cabin, there was a voice of dissatisfaction. "Yes, you're cheap. It doesn't matter if you die, but don't bother us. We still want to live." Immediately, along the other corner, there is a sound of dissatisfaction, very unhappy. "Young man, is it not good to live a good life? What are you pretending to be stupid at this time?" The rest of them also shook their heads and sighed. Looking at Yi Tian, they were speechless and echoed the words of the first two people. This seems to have nothing to do with them, but the robbers who only want money and the robbers who kill people are two concepts. In case these robbers are annoyed by Yi Tian, these guys will put forward more stringent requirements, and then they will be in real trouble. That is, young man, don't be impulsive. Just sit down and don't make trouble. Everyone in the cabin echoed, talking and winking at Angel Yi. This appearance, although it seems to be selfishness, but in fact, it is not changing the route for Yi Tian. They don't think that Yi Tian, a young man with first-class gags, but looks thin and weak, can deal with these armed robbers. Instead of provoking them and risking their lives, it's better to settle it peacefully. Moreover, if the robbers' hands are really stained with blood, it may drag them down. At that time, everyone on the plane will be in big trouble. Shut the hell up. With one sound in one sentence, the bearded robber was very angry. He looked around and drank a lot. Brother, don't make so much noise. You are ugly. You're even more ferocious when you shout like this. Besides, you still have bad breath. Open your mouth, spittle and stars are flying around. You are so smelly. Don't talk about beautiful girls. Even heavy tanks don't like you. Yi Tian shook his head repeatedly, raised his hand to hold his nose, looked at the robber with beard, and sighed. This boy is really out of his mind. As soon as Yi Tian said this, everyone in the engine room was silly. They thought that Yi Tian would stop when he met them. Unexpectedly, he began to make more efforts. He not only laughed at the robber, but also said that he had bad breath. Although this guy is really not good looking, it's true that someone has a gun in his hand. Isn't this boy afraid to provoke the bearded robber, tear up the ticket and shoot him? Son of a bitch, I'll kill you. Sure enough, beard smell, eyes almost spit out anger, wheezing, angry raised the hand black hole gun barrel, aimed at Yi Tian's temple. He wants to let this smelly boy, who doesn't know the superiority of heaven and earth, understand the cost of saying the wrong thing. What's the matter? This smelly boy is very ungrateful. He can do it to death. He just set an example to others and let others be honest. At the same time, the riot here also attracted the attention of other robbers. Two robbers came together. The robber standing at the end of the engine room also put down his gun barrel and looked at the scene with a smile, waiting for the bearded robber to clean up Yi Tian. It's time. When Yi Tian saw this scene, his eyes narrowed slightly. The playful smile on his cheek disappeared in an instant. Instead, it was a face without any emotion and incomparable indifference. Son of a bitch, go to hell. At the same time, the bearded robber with a gloomy sneer at the corner of his mouth and his fingers suddenly pressed the trigger. Ah! Looking at this scene, the cabin immediately heard a cry of surprise. All of them could not help squatting down, tightly hugging their heads, for fear that their whiskers might accidentally go off and hurt themselves, or kill Yi Tian Ho. They felt that they were not satisfied and wanted to fight against someone else. Ha! But the next second, they were stunned, because they have squatted down, but did not hear the sound of gunfire. The engine room is so big, and it's a closed space. Even if the gun barrel is equipped with a muffler, it's absolutely impossible to be so quiet when shooting. Not to mention, they don't smell the bloody smell of bullets passing through their heads and red and white objects ejecting. This strange, let all people can't help sticking out half of the head, toward Yi Tian and the position of the beard robber. As soon as they could see, the bearded robber had fallen to the ground, covering his crotch with both hands, howling bitterly. What's going on? This scene, let everyone directly see silly eyes. It is clearly the robber with a beard pointed a gun at Yi Tian. Even if someone wants to fall, it should be Yi Tian Kai, right? But now, how is the robber fall? He's really, really tough. Only Yan Bing, with awe-inspiring eyes, looked into Yi Tian's eyes, full of shock. Just now, at the moment when the robber with whiskers is ready to press the trigger, Yi Tian's palm suddenly raises his hand and waves upward. He crushes the robber's phalanx very neatly. The soft meatball, of course, can't press the trigger. Not only that, at the same time when he grabbed the gun, Yi Tian directly kicked the robber's legs with a fierce kick. With a crack, Yan Bing blushed. At the same time, he told the robber to jump up, and then he collapsed to the ground, crying for his father and mother. Rob me, you really robbed the wrong person. And at the moment when everyone felt the tremor of this scene, Yi Tian gently spat out two words in his mouth, immediately stepped forward, and his body suddenly appeared in front of the two robbers who were close to the scene. Before the two robbers could reach for the gun they were carrying, Yi Tian's hand had fallen on his shoulder. Click! Click! Two crisp ring suddenly rang out, followed by the two robbers carrying guns, bang on the ground. All this just happened in a flash of lightning, even less than 1,000th of a second. Shwa! Shwa! Immediately after that, Tian suddenly raises his foot and kicks 2 guns on the ground. The heavy guns, provoked by him, circle and dance like meteor hammers, flying towards the tail of the cabin. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the butt of the gun hit heavily on the head of the robber at the rear of the engine room. The power of this blow was so great that it was outrageous. Just for a moment, the robber fell on the ground before he could hum. This scene let the whole cabin become a dead silence. Everyone's eyes are staring at Tian. At this moment, everyone was stunned, even forgot to scream instinctively. Tian's every punch, every foot, in their view, seems to have been practiced thousands of times. The location of each blow is so accurate that it makes a robber faint. But they knew that Tian gang had just been pointed at his head with a gun. He didn't have any time to think about it, but the more so, the more amazing it was. Even at this moment, some passengers could not help but have a kind of bold conjecture. They began to doubt whether what happened in front of them would be the big director who had enough to eat and prepare for the real effect. A pair of eyes were widened because of tremor, and a pair of mouths were widened because of surprise, forming a unique and incomparable landscape in the cabin. But at this time, let them feel the shock of the scene is not over. Tian jumped, then appeared standing in front of the cockpit gate that has been staring at the robber. Hello? After Tian approaches, he smiles at the robber and raises his hand. When the robber heard this, he recovered from the tremor. He just wanted to touch the gun, but Tian had already chopped down on the robber's neck. The robber groaned and fell to the ground. Bang! When the robber fell down, his head was heavily hit on the bolt in the engine room. In an instant, his head was broken and blood flowed, and the smell of blood was pungent. This is not filming, it's true. This scene, let everyone immediately confirm, in front of you see all this, is not a film, but really happened. That seems to be irrelevant. Thin and weak youth is actually a true master. I'll leave these people to you. I'll go inside. At this time, Tian nods to Yen Bing, makes a gesture, points to the robber on the ground, and points his chin into the cockpit. There is also a robber in the cockpit. If he doesn't kill him, the consequences will be unimaginable if the goods are used against the captain. What happened to Qin Luo God at the beginning? Tian doesn't want to repeat it again. Don't worry. Yen Bing responds to Tian in a silent way. Hearing this, Tian immediately stood beside the cockpit door and raised his hand to knock heavily on the door. What for? Tian's percussion just fell, and the robber's voice came from the cockpit. The noise on the plane is very loud, and the sound insulation effect of the cockpit door is very good. Therefore, the leader robber in the cockpit didn't find anything. Moreover, he didn't feel that in front of his group of armed robbers, any passengers could play tricks. When he heard the sound, he immediately thought it was his men knock at the door. Boss, there's a boy outside who's clamoring to see you. There's a big rich man in the first class. The Leaf Day hears a voice, immediately coarsening a voice, learning the voice of the robber of the beard, big voice Wei. The reason why he spent so much time with that guy just now is not only to bring those robbers here, but also another reason. I intend to listen more to his voice and habits, so that I can imitate them later. Now, it's really useful. What great man! The robber hijacked the plane. He ran for the money. At the moment, he was excited to hear that there was a rich man on the plane. In addition, Tian's imitation was very similar. The leading robber, without any hesitation, pushed the door of the cabin open. This guy is a chicken thief. The door opens a seam, the eye of Leaf Day immediately a draw. I saw that the leading robber was very careful. When he opened the door, he only opened a gap. Instead of sticking out his head, he first pointed out the black muzzle of the gun. Who are you? Leading robber through the door, immediately saw the people standing outside, not his men, but Tian, immediately low voice, followed, without thinking, will pull the trigger. No. Tian doesn't have any hesitation. His magic power is surging, and a fireball suddenly gathers in his palm. He rushes to the barrel of the gun before the leader shoots. The secret of fire burning is powerful. All refined steel can be turned into soft fingers. The fire starts. In an instant, the robber's barrel turns into a red-hot metal and sticks together. Water transport. Immediately after, Tian drinks in his mouth, and the flame in his palm suddenly turns into a water ball, touching the barrel of the gun. Hiss hiss. In an instant, with the sound of a red-hot iron thrown into the water, there was a terrible white fog rising up around the barrel, and then the red barrel, which had been burned into hot metal, turned into a black iron knot. Bang! At this time, the robber's fingers had been pressed on the trigger, and the terrible gunfire rang out. Ah! All the passengers no longer doubt the authenticity of the hijacking. They scream and go under the seat, and look at Tian's position along the gap below. There are even a lot of timid young girls, who close their eyes involuntarily. They are worried that they will see the tragic picture of Tian being shot through. But they can see that Tian is standing well at the moment, and there is no sound of warhead landing in front of him. There's something wrong with the gunshot just now. Immediately after that, everyone noticed that the sound of the gun was very strange. It was not clear, but rather dull. Moreover, the sound of the impact was very strange. It was not like hitting the flesh, but like hitting a steel plate. I grass, what's the matter? At this time, the leading robber had already seen his gun barrel. At this moment, it turned into a terrible scrap metal. He could not help but exclaim in astonishment and scold. Then he would shrink inside and close the cockpit door. Climb out. But without waiting for him to make any action, Tian sneered, raised his hand and held the barrel of the gun, forced to face the outside area, pulling the robber to a stagger. However, the robber, obviously trained, has a keen reaction. He feels that Tian is pulling the barrel of the gun. He can't help but release his hand immediately, and wants to let Tian take the gun, and then close the cockpit door. Do you think you've played with me by the means of your three-legged cat? But unfortunately, Tian had already expected his hand. One hand grabbed the gun, while the other hand held the edge of the cockpit door and yanked it outwards. Poop! In an instant, the robber immediately fell out. Dong! At the same time, Tian has already prepared a knee lift, fierce incomparable top in the robber's chest. Poof! Rao Sure, the robber, had practiced for several days, but he couldn't bear Tian's terrible blow. He fell forward, opened his mouth and spurted out a mouthful of red blood. Pa! Bang! Immediately after that, Tian's hand fell on the back of the robber's head. Facing the front area, the robber fell to the ground. The brain door and the engine room floor collided with each other. This collision immediately made the robber feel that thousands of stars were rising in front of him, and his body, which had already faltered, immediately collapsed. This is Tian left his hand, did not take out all the strength, otherwise, the robber's head must be like a ripe watermelon. He slapped burst, split. After slapping the robber in the face, Tian strode toward the cockpit. Seeing that the captain and the vice-captain were in a panic, he comforted them and told them that the hijacking was over and that they had nothing to worry about. Wow, little brother, you are so fierce. Nyo, you're a real expert. Are you practicing pa? When Tian came out of the cockpit again, he immediately saw that all the passengers in the cabin stood up, cheered, clapped and rushed to him. Everyone is not stingy praise words, slap red, eyes are all worship and admiration. The whole process of Tian's hands-on work is really amazing. Every step seems to have been elaborately deduced. It seems to have been elaborately designed. If not, these people would not have the illusion that they are making a movie just now. But the more they confirm the truth, the more shocked they feel. Single-handed, one person got so many armed robbers. After all, it was even more intact, without any sign of injury. This kind of means is not seen with one's own eyes. Who can believe it is true? Especially before that a few ridicule Tian disorderly, want to implicate them of that a few people, is full of shame, hate can't find a ground crack to drill in. Fortunately, Tian didn't pay any attention to these people. He has already seen through the 2 generations of people. In the face of crisis, he can see the human nature. Moreover, these people are not doing anything wrong. After all, they are all trying to save their lives and survive. There is no right or wrong, and there is no need to criticize them. Soon, the security personnel on the plane and Yi Tian tied up all the robbers and threw them in the corner of the first-class cabin. They quietly waited for the plane to land at Yanjing Airport and handed them over to the police, so that these crazy people could get the punishment they deserved. During the next 4 hours of flight, Yi Tian has always been the focus of attention of all passengers. Everyone's eyes have been staring at the position of the first class, and the eyes of the first-class passengers are constantly circling on Yi Tian. In order to reduce the trouble, Yi Tian and Yan Bing immediately showed their strength far beyond the ordinary people after they got off the plane. They quickly separated the crowd, crossed the fence of the airport and ran out like rabbits. Even the airport's already prepared thank you ceremony was lost, and the object of performance was lost. Ha ha ha, I found that you can't escape the life of being chased and photographed. After leaving the airport, Yan Bing sees that there is no one around him. Then he looks at Yi Tian and laughs. Yi Tian heard the sound, but also a wry smile on his face. In Nanhai University, it's a stop to be photographed by the president. Now I've been on a plane, and there are so many people following me. It's just that he's really not interested in being a net star. By the way, what do you mean when you were on the plane? What do you mean you're good at body searching? And at this time, Yan Bing's eyes turn, suddenly looking at Yi Tian, playful smile asked. Ah. Hearing this, Yi Tian could not help but be dumb. He opened his mouth, but he could not say a word. He lifted a stone and hit himself in the foot. At that time, he was on the plane in order to disperse the bearded robber. Yan Bing made fun of him with this sentence. However, Yi Tian's eyes are involuntarily swept to Yan Bing's chest radian, and then when he sees Yan Bing's playful smile, he can't help but feel embarrassed, and his old face can't help reddening slightly. This body is really too young and immature to be worthy of the powerful soul of Dandi. Well, I won't tease you anymore. I can't see that your accomplishments are so high and your face is so thin. Yan Bing looks at Yi Tian's appearance and can't help but smile. However, she has a little more affection for Yi Tian in her heart. In today's world, there are really few boys who can blush. They are rarer than giant pandas. However, she didn't know that Yi Tian's young body had a heart of 200 years old, but even if he was a man of 2 generations, and he was in his 20s, he still had a very poor understanding of women's minds. What are we going to do next? It's estimated that things on the plane will start to quarrel later, and many people will come to you. Closely following, Yan Bing looks at Yi Tian and says. As she said, what happened on the plane before is really incredible. When the passengers who witnessed it tell others, they will certainly add fuel to it. Maybe they will say that Yi Tian is an immortal. At that time, there will be countless efforts to find Yi Tian. Don't worry. I told my friend before I got on the plane. She told President Xi that we should meet around here. Let President Xi deal with these things. This is his place. I think he should have some ways. Yi Tian chuckles and says. Friends? Is it Xiao Yuer's girl last time? Yan Bing hears the sound, eyes immediately become alert, looking at Yi Tian Dao. The last time Yanhua University went to Nanhai University for communication, she noticed Xiao Yuer and noticed that her relationship with Yi Tian was very unusual. Well, Yuer and I are classmates in high school, and we are good friends, good brothers. Yi Tian nodded with a smile. Good friend, good brother. When Yan Bing heard this, she was slightly relieved, but then she took a suspicious look at Yi Tian. She doubted that this wooden pimple might be that she didn't see the girl's mind and gave her a wrong impression. At this time, Yi Tian has taken out his mobile phone and dialed Xiao Yuer's phone. As he said, Xiao Yuer and Shi Chunxing are already waiting outside the airport. After receiving Yi Tian's call, they ask where Yi Tian is next. Soon, a Maybach S600 comes and stops in front of them. Yi Tian, get in the car. Then the window rolled down, revealing Shi Chunxing's genial face and smiling at him. Xiao Yuer sits in the back row and nods to Yi Tian with a smile on her face. Compared with the last time she met, she obviously becomes much more cheerful. Obviously, after the Shanghai Yuanli affair was solved last time, her relationship with her parents is as good as ever, and her heart and nature have changed a lot. The airport was in a mess just now. It seems that a plane was hijacked by several robbers, isn't it you? After getting on the bus, as soon as Yi Tian was seated by the co-pilot, Shi Chunqing looked at Yi Tian and asked with a casual smile. It's our flight. Yi Tian nodded with a smile. Hiss. Are you all right? When Shi Chunqing heard this, he immediately took a breath of air and said in a hurry. But when he spoke, he realized that he had said a piece of rubbish. If something happened, Yi Tian and Yan Bing would not appear in front of him, so he quickly changed his words and said, I heard they said that someone had put over a dozen armed robbers alone. Is that true? Not so many. In fact, there are only 6 or 7. Yi Tian shook his head and said. Yan Bing is really right. 3 people become tigers. Originally, 6 or 7 robbers turned into more than a dozen when they went to the passengers' mouths. There are quite a few of them. Shi Chunqing sighs with emotion, but immediately realizes that Yi Tian's sentence actually it is a little strange. He quickly stops and pulls over to the side of the car. He looks at Yi Tian in shock and says, that person can't be. Yes, it's me. Yi Tian nodded, gave a wry smile, and then said, this matter, I'd like to trouble President Qi. You can help me find a way to cover it up. I don't want to be like a monster. No matter where I go, there are a large group of people following me. Hissing. When Shi Chunqing heard Yi Tian's words, he immediately took a few mouthfuls of cold air just like eating noodles. He really did not expect that Yi Tian's memory has been so superior, brain so developed at the same time, skill is even better to such an incredible level, even can rely on one person, put 6 or 7 armed robbers. If he didn't know that Yi Tian was not a boaster, he would almost doubt that Yi Tian was exaggerating. Principal Qi, please. Yi Tian looks at Shi Chunqing's appearance and says with a bitter smile. Well, it's a bit of a trouble, but I'll think of a way to keep it down. Shi Chunqing hears the speech and looks at Yi Tian carefully. After he finds that he really doesn't seem to be faking, he nods and agrees. But at this moment, he looks at Yi Tian more different. You know, if ordinary people do such a great thing, it must be publicized. All over the world knows it, but Yi Tian didn't do it. He didn't want to make it public. Instead, he asked him to help suppress it. It's very rare to see such a person who has done such a good deed and saved a person's life, but has not taken credit for it. Such students should not stay in Nanhai University. They should be from Yanhua University. After thinking of this, Shi Chunqing sighs and laments that Yi Tian, the pearl, did not fall into the arms of Yanhua University. I'll trouble you, Principal Qi. The Leaf Day hears a sound, this just slightly relaxed a breath, have a kind of feeling like a heavy load of relief. When he was at Nanhai University, he was surrounded by people everywhere he went, holding his mobile phone to take photos. He really didn't want to feel it for the second time. It's no trouble. I'll help you. I should. Shi Chunqing pretended to be casual, waved his hand and continued to drive. As he walked on, he said, this time you come to communicate, it's actually similar to the last time we went there, that is, to take part in a competition and then take a look at our courses. The teachers in Yanhua University are very good. If you have time, you can listen to their lessons together with Yuer. I think you should like it here. President Qi, our teacher at Nanhai University, is also very good. Yan Bing heard the sound, immediately alert response. Ha ha ha, all very good, all very good. Shi Chunqing gave a ha-ha, and then said to Yi Tian mysteriously, last time, things about Nanhai University went crazy in Yanhua University, so I have to tell you something first. What's the matter? Yi Tian doubts to ask away. You are not so good as an exchange student. Shi Chunqing shook his head with a bitter smile and said, last time you beat so many of us alone, the students in the school were very unconvinced after hearing about it. Many people are waiting for you to enter the campus and teach you a lesson. In their words, it's to let you come back to Nanhai University in a miserable way. The Leaf Day hears speech, a tiny smile, didn't say what words. Before he came to Yanhua University, he had already guessed these situations. After all, the people in Yanhua University are top-notch people with eyes higher than the top. Now he has been trampled on by Nanhai University. He must be a lot of unconvinced in his heart, holding his strength and trying to settle accounts with him. This time, they have made great efforts to prepare you with two kinds of threats. Shi Chunxing shook his head with a smile, and then said, one is martial arts, the other is literary fighting. Fighting? Wendo Yi Tian picks eyebrows, can't help but ask curiously. Both of them are just as the name suggests. Fighting is to compare skills with you. They found some students from Yanhua Martial Arts Club to have a good competition with you. Those students can be regarded as good hands. Their skills are very powerful. Shi Chunxing explained with a smile, but his voice became smaller and smaller, and his face became embarrassed. Not only him, but Yan Bing and Xiao Yuer in the back row were also full of strange smiles. Who is Ji Tian? It is regarded by many people as the only one who can shake the how to choose? Hearing this, Yi Tian picked his eyebrows and said with a faint smile, for those who are reasonable, it's natural to be polite before being polite. For those who are unreasonable, they can only be polite after being polite. I choose martial arts. Are you sure you want to fight first? Are you not afraid that we will knock you unconscious, that you will not be able to participate in the fight, and that you will be carried back to the South China Sea on a stretcher? Hear Yi Tian's words, those celebrities tall and big boys hold their arms and smile confidently at him. It looks like Yi Tian will lose. You'd better think about it first. When you lose, how can you face the students around you who have high hopes for you? Yi Tian is fearless and calm. He looks directly into the eyes of the tall boy who is the leader and says faintly, Shu. A word fell, the gate immediately hissed. It is said that Chen Ke, the president of Yanhua Martial Arts Club, is a native of Chenjiagu. He is well known in Yanhua University. When he first entered school, he had a duel with military training instructors, and he was very good at it. The instructors of military training for Yanhua University are not ordinary people. They are all standard field soldiers. They are proficient in fighting and catching. Ordinary people can't even get away with one move under their hands, but Chen Ke can fight as well as others, which shows his strength. But now, Yi Tian, who is obviously smaller than Chen Ke, even says that he wants Chen Ke to be ready to lose. How can he not make people feel that he is bluffing about the magic snail? I hope you can be so confident after the competition. It's a guest from afar. Let's do it first. Chen Ke also laughed, picked eyebrow, looking at Yi Tian, Wei. Let the guests be as they please. Yi Tian shook his head, then with a smile in his eyes, said, and if you let me do it first, I'm worried that you will fall down before you even make a move, and you will lose people in front of these students around you. Arrogant. Chen Ke's face sank when he heard this, and he took a step forward. There was no flashy performance, but a simple punch, which came to Yi Tian's chest like lightning. This guy has some martial arts virtue. Yi Tian looks at the position where Chen Ke's fist falls and nods slightly. Chen Ke's punch is famous for its strength and ferocity. If he really does it hard, he will give priority to the key points of temples and head. But Chen Ke didn't do so, which shows that although he was angry, he still kept restraint and retained his martial virtue as a martial arts man. Good fist. President Chen, good job. Let him lie down. I'll give you a drink to celebrate later. Let this guy see the strength of our Yanhua Martial Arts Club and know what it means to go down the mountain. There is a mountain outside the mountain and there is a day outside the sky. Yes, beat him hard, punch him, let this guy come to Yanjing vertically and be carried back to Nanhai horizontally. Seeing Chen Ke's fierce blow, the students around immediately cheered for Chen Ke, hoping that he could earn face for Yanhua University. Bang! But before they could hear it, Chen Ke's body was just like a shell when he was about to hit Yi Tian. He was beaten back 5 or 6 meters away, knocked over 7 or 8 of the most fierce guys, and then fell to the ground. This what's going on? In a flash, all the Yanhua students at the door who were just cheering for Chen Ke were immediately confused. They opened their mouths wide and didn't respond at all. What's going on? I haven't seen Yi Tian's hand yet. How can Chen Ke fly out? They only see Chen Ke fiercely toward Yi Tian, but how Yi Tian does it, but they don't see it at all. It felt like Chen Ke's fist didn't touch Yi Tian, it was like hitting on the spring, and people were bounced away. That's a little too much. This is too evil, isn't it? This guy how strong Chinko covers his chest and sits down on the ground. He looks at Yi Tian in horror. In his eyes full of confidence, he is only defeated and shocked at the moment. At that scene, others didn't know what was going on, but as the client, he couldn't be clearer. Just at the moment when his fist was about to approach Yi Tian's chest, he felt that a strong wind came towards his chest. There was no doubt that Yi Tian's fist was coming. However, when he felt it, it was too late. Yi Tian's fist was too fast. He couldn't do any blocking at all, so he was hit in the chest first. And, one hit fly. Moreover, he sensed that Yi Tian's strength was extremely exquisite, and he just hit him, but did not hurt him. But that's what makes people feel more terrible. He can feel that if Yi Naivete wants to fight against him, there is no doubt that he is dead now. Chenka really can't accept the result. A punch, just a punch. She has been proud of Kung Fu, in front of each other, it is so vulnerable, like a clown. Chenko, what's going on? You're not acting with him, are you? We didn't see anything. Why did you fly out? The students at the gate of Yanhua University are also extremely dissatisfied with this scene, and it is difficult to accept the result. Chen Ku is the president of Yanhua Martial Arts Club, the strongest one among them. However, facing Yi Tian, he flies out in the face. I lost. Chen Ku took a look at Yi Tian. After standing up on the ground, he didn't pay any attention to the voices of the people around him. He bowed deeply to Yi Tian and said, I'm not as good as others. I'm convinced. After that, Chen Ku takes a deep look at Yi Tian, then turns around and walks towards the crowd. Just from his defeat, he has seen that what the exchange students said is not false. Yi naivety is very strong, and it is crushing. The result of fighting is like this. I'm afraid that Wendo will not cause any change. Nanhai University, indeed, has a very bad character, even to the point where they can trample Yanhua under their feet. What happened to Chen Ku? Is that the end? I'll go. Did he really fly Chen Ku just now, but the speed is too fast for us to see? You're kidding. It's so fast that you can't see it. I think it's a cartoon. Chen Ku's departure makes everyone directly dumbfounded. The scene just now was so bizarre that people couldn't understand it at all. If we don't know Chen Ku very well and know that he is a man of one mind, I'm afraid we can't really say that the battle between Chen Ku and Yi Tian Gang is like a group performance that accompanies the puppet masters and flies upside down as soon as the tiger body of the master shakes. If you are unconvinced or feel that Chen Ku is acting with me, you can try it. I don't mind. However, in order to save time, you can do it together. Yi Tian listens to the noise of the crowd and laughs slightly. A language falls, that calm manner, immediately Jinju a lot of Yanhua University students. President Qi, this place of your school is not a protected cultural relic, is it? At this time, Yi Tian smiles at Qi Chunqing and points to a concrete floor nearby to play with the taste. Of course not. Qi Chunqing immediately shook his head. Although Yanhua University has a long history, it is not as old as a piece of concrete floor. It has become a protected cultural relic. That's good. Yi Tian nodded with a smile, and then walked to the cement floor, followed closely, pointed out his fingers, toward the cement floor brush a few strokes. I wipe it. Damn, my eyes, are you kidding? Seeing his movements, Yanhua students immediately gathered around him to see what he was doing. But when they glanced at the inside of his fingers, they immediately became completely stupid. Their mouths were so open that they could let people put a big duck egg inside. See only, in the position that Leaf Day finger delimits, appeared on the ground impressively. Leaf Day, this one swims big word. The depth of the handwriting, into the ground, will be nearly half, if not all people see. This is Yi Tian with his fingers out, who dare to believe it is true. I'm afraid that even the so-called one-finger Zen in martial arts novels is just like that. And how can people continue to compare with such an incredible means? All of this, it's impossible to refuse. The scene fell into a dead silence. No one spoke, and everyone was in shock. They watched a lot of such pictures on TV, but in real life, they saw them for the first time. If Chen Ku is bribed by Yi Tian to accompany him in acting, but the cement floor is a dead thing. It's trampled by cars every day, so it's impossible to cooperate with Yi Tian in acting. The only explanation is that Yi Tian is so powerful that they can't understand it. I don't know if you are satisfied with the result of the fighting? At this time, Yi Tian got up and looked at the handwriting on the ground. He looked at those Yanhua students who were silly and said with a smile. Although his voice was not loud, it came into everyone's ears, but it was like thunder, which woke all the Yanhua students up. Those students who had been waiting to see Yi Tian's jokes were full of chatting at the moment. They had planned to see Yi Tian beaten by Chen Ku, and then they made a few sarcastic remarks about him. They even made up some words in their stomach, but now they are all useless. We are all students, and we are not a group of brawlers who can only fight. What's the meaning of fists? The upper one works hard and the lower one works hard. Haven't you heard of it? That's to say, it's a brain competition, not a martial arts competition. It's no big deal if you're good at kung fu and skill. Wudo is just an appetizer. Wundo is a big show. If you want to be arrogant, come back when Wundo wins. Then, some Yanhua students who are still unconvinced look at Yi Tian and say in a loud voice. Yes? But if I remember correctly, it seems that this is the second game I have won, and you haven't won any. Hearing this, Yi Tian shrugs and looks at a group of unconvinced Yanhua students, smiling. This language falls, those unconvinced Yanhua students, immediately completely speechless. Yes, they have lost to Yi Tian twice, including martial arts. Such a situation has never occurred in the past history of Yanhua University. If they lose again, these students will be a great shame for Yanhua University over the years. If you win the first two games, it's just a fluke. You really have the ability to win this fight. But at this time, along the crowd, suddenly came out a thin little boy, with black glasses, dressed very elegant, but the tone is very open. Ha ha ha, Xiao Fei is coming out. We are sure to win this game. When Xiao Fei comes out, who is the winner? Last time, he didn't go to work, so he lost. Now he comes out, we are sure to win. As soon as I saw the boy with black glasses, the Yanhua students, who had been a little tired, immediately became excited, eager to try and regain their confidence. Who is this guy? It seems that Yanhua students respect him very much. Yi Tian sees Xiao Fei and can't help picking his eyebrows. Then he takes a look at Xiao Yuer and wants to know his identity. Xiao Fei, a junior of Yanhua Law Department, was admitted to Yanhua University 3 years ago with a full score of 750 in liberal arts. After entering the university, his scores in all subjects have been kept at full marks. Someone in the law department of Yanhua University once had a gamble with him and chose a law book to test him. As a result, there is no classics that he can't recite. He is the best in the brain competition of Yanhua University. Last time, because he asked for leave at home, he didn't participate in the exchange with Nanhai University. Without waiting for Xiao Yuer to speak, Yan Bing tells Yi Tian about Xiao Fei. Yi Tian hears the sound, can't help staring at Xiao Fei, surprised to see two eyes. The full mark of the college entrance examination is indeed a very amazing achievement. You know, although Yanhua University is a school full of talents, there are few candidates who can get the full mark in the college entrance examination. I'm afraid they can't find a few after they have been established for so many years. Then he looked at Yan Bing in surprise. Compared with Xiao Fei's achievements, he was more surprised at how Yan Bing knew Xiao Fei's things so clearly, just as he knew them in advance. Don't look at me. I'm also your teacher in charge of the team. Of course, I have to do this homework. Yan Bing glances at Yi Tian and raises her head. She is satisfied with Yi Tian's expression. How's it going? Are you ready to start fighting? Do you want to let you have a rest, adjust your mood, and then we can start the competition? At this time, Xiao Fei looked at Yi Tian and said faintly. Rest, I don't need it. Let's talk about your topic. Yi Tian shrugged casually, light way. If you are a guest from afar, I won't give you too difficult a topic. Otherwise, it will be said that Yanhua University bullies the students who come to exchange. Well, let's choose one of these dictionaries, and let people dial it in front of us, and then write it silently to see who can write more. Don't worry, I'm a fair and just person. These dictionaries, I promise, are not the dictionaries of our two majors, and I have never read any of them in advance. Xiao Fei heard Yi Tian's words, but he didn't waste any more time. He nodded to some of the students nearby. Immediately, someone held a few piles of thick dictionaries and put them in front of Yi Tian and Xiao Fei, and prepared neutral pens and white paper for them. Dial the dictionary once, then write it silently, and judge the result according to the content. When Yi Tian heard Xiao Fei's words, he nodded slightly. The difficulty of this assessment is not low indeed, and it also guarantees fairness. After all, except for a few people, most people will not have enough to eat and have nothing to do. Xiao Fei is crazy and has a strong confidence in himself. He should not cheat. You can choose at will. At the same time, Yan Bing also lowered his voice to Yi Tian, saying, "This one, then." Yi Tian nodded at will, and then picked out a book from a thick pile of dictionaries. What he saw on the cover was 5 words of pharmacy dictionary. Although Xiao Fei is crazy, he is honest. The students of Yanhua University are also like this. These people are all proud of themselves. They usually think that they are the most elite group of students. They don't look at anyone in the eye. They are born out of the world and step on them, which naturally makes them feel unconvinced. Yi Tian glanced at the cover and nodded slightly, confirming that Xiao Fei had just said that these dictionaries were really outside their major. Pharmacy dictionary, it's difficult. It's not only unrelated to their major, but also has a lot of rare words in it. I'm afraid few people will go to this kind of thing except the students majoring in medicine. I believe Xiao Fei can get 750 in the college entrance examination. This time, it will give us Yanhua University a fight. Around the Yanhua students, see the name of the dictionary, also slightly took a breath of air. Get ready to start. Who will help us dial the dictionary? Xiao Fei listened to the voices around him, with a smile on his face, and then looked around. I'll do it. Hearing this, Xiao Yuer stepped forward, then looked at Xiao Fei and said, Xiao Shuachang, can you trust me? She was worried that if other Yanhua students came to do this, they would deliberately use the bad things. It's a test of eyesight to move the pages of a book to remember. As long as the person who dials the book chooses a slightly slanted angle, it is likely to affect the final result. Of course I can trust Yuer Shuemei's character. Xiao Fei nodded with a smile. After the exchange students returned to school, it was said that Xiao Yuer lost to Yi Tian because she liked Yi Tian, but he didn't believe these words at all, because he knew that a girl like Xiao Yuer could never like a boy who needed her to cheat to win over her. Let's go. Yi Tian also smiles and nods to Xiao Yuer. While Xiao Yuer sniffs the words and looks at them. Then she goes to the middle of Yi Tian and Xiao Fei, raises her hand, flicks the thick dictionary, and makes the pages go out of the way in her fingers, making a sound like the wind blowing through the treetops. Wow, the speed of page turning is very fast, like the wind passing by. Even people with excellent eyesight can see only a few words and phrases. Many contents have been turned to the following pages before they can see them clearly. It's over. I'll start to write silently. Soon, a dictionary was quickly turned over by Xiao Yuer. After she closed the dictionary, she looked at Yi Tian and Xiao Fei and said in a deep voice. It's too fast. I can't see anything clearly. If anyone can see it clearly, it's really exaggerating. At such a fast speed, it's very powerful to remember 100 words. I see that there are many Latin letters used in medicine besides Chinese. It's very difficult to remember them. Xiao Yuer's words fell, and there was a loud noise in the room. Although the students of Yanhua University boasted of their pride, they were also surprised at the difficulty. They asked themselves that it would be great if they could write 100 words silently. Be quiet. Shi Chunsheng glanced at the crowd and motioned them to be quiet. Hearing this, they immediately kept silent, and then focused on Yi Tian and Xiao Fei. They wanted to see which of these two geniuses was better. They could remember more content and write more things silently in the quick reading. At this time, Yi Tian and Xiao Fei had already sat down and began to write down what they had just remembered. Both of them were flying with their pens. In the quiet field, there was only the sound of salad brought by the friction when the nib crossed the paper. Both of them wrote very fast. In a short time, they wrote a small half of them, which was definitely more than the 100 words just mentioned. It's amazing. Perhaps, this is the difference between the top genius and the genius. What genius? Compared with them, I think I'm a real fool. Looking at their fast speed of dictation, Yenhua students set off a low noise, many people praise, and look at Yi Tian's hostile eyes, but also fade a lot, instead, is full of admiration. Although the competition is not over and the winner is not yet known, the fact that Yi Tian can write down so much shows that although Yi Tian was born in Nanhai University, he is still a worthy opponent. However, I believe that the final winner must be Xiao Fei. I also think it's Xiao Fei. The final winner will be him. But the admiration goes to admiration. Many Yenhua students still think that Xiao Fei is the one who can win in the end. There is no doubt that Yi Tian can only lose. There is no pen, give me another one. But at this time, Yi Tian, who is writing, suddenly stops and looks at Xiao Yuer. Is the pen out of water? Xiao Yuer nodded quickly, handed Yi Tian a pen and asked questions. But as soon as the words came out, she realized that she had lost her words. She waved her hand and said, "Don't worry about me. You can write silently. You know, this kind of fast memory needs state very much. Once the state is interrupted, there will be deviation." She worried that her careless words would affect Yi Tian and decide the final result of the competition. "No, I just don't think one pen is enough." Yi Tian took the pen, looked at Xiao Yuer, shook his head with a smile, and then said, "One pen is not enough?" Xiao Yuer was stunned and looked at Yi Tian in amazement. She immediately saw that after Yi Tian took the pen, she put it on her left hand. Looking at the posture, she intended to draw about her right. "I'll do it. It's true or false. I'll do it right and left. I'll do it with my heart. Please tease us." I don't believe that when he writes like this, the content written by his left hand and right hand can be different. It's more accurate than who remembers the content, and it's not more than who writes the paper. What's the use of writing more than one? Yenhua University is like as two peas, they all watched the action of Yi Tian, and then they pulled cold air one by one, followed by a few murmuring disapproval. They then gathered behind the leaves of heaven and wanted to see if he had such a heart and two uses. Damn, I'm kidding. I can really use both sides of my mind. The writing is totally different. It's a little crazy, isn't it? Can you still play like this? The contents written down on the two pieces of paper are completely different. They are so smooth. How does the brain do it? But a glance, these students, completely stupid, people like being struck by thunder, completely dull, exclaimed repeatedly. I can see that the contents written on the white paper on the left and right sides of Yi Tian are quite different. Even though the students of Yenhua University think they are all elite talents, they know they can't do it, but now, Yi Tian is in front of them, showing such incredible means to the extreme. What's more, looking at Yi Tian's appearance, he didn't delay at all. If he writes with a spirit, it's shocking. This guy. Not to mention Yenhua students, even Yen Bing, who is standing on Yi Tian's side, is dull. He looks at Yi Tian in a daze and marvels. What is genius? This is genius. But they didn't know that Yi Tian's idea of cultivating Sua Wanguan was very strong. He could use two things at a time. If he could have three hands, even if he could use three things at one time, it would not be a waste of energy. Swipe Yi Tian left and right, the speed of writing, it is incredible to the point, just a short time, the white paper around, then piled up a pile. Not only that, but what's more amazing is that with the passage of time, the speed of Xiao Fei's writing has gradually slowed down, and obviously began to become a lot slower, but Yi Tian's speed has not decreased at all, and he still maintains a very fast speed. Xiao Fei, won't you lose? How can I have a bad feeling? No way, it must not be like this. Yenhua University students, looking at this scene, hope heart, gradually sink down, one by one heart suddenly gave birth to a bad feeling. This kind of quick memory, the more it comes to the end, the more it tests people. It's like squeezing toothpaste. Yi Tian is still flying, but Xiao Fei's speed has obviously slowed down. What does that mean?
Xiao Fei has emptied his toothpaste now, but Yi Tian still has more than half of the tube of toothpaste in his hand.
Is it true that I'm not as good as him?
Not only them, but also Xiao Fei, who is called the Great God by them, can no longer keep his peace of mind. He can't help but turn his head and look at Yi Tian's position. When he sees Yi Tian bowing left and riding with a divine speed and posture, his heart murmurs and his forehead sweats.
No, I won't lose. There's no way I can lose.
But immediately after that, Xiao Fei cheered himself up in his heart.
He wanted to cheer up and try to remember more.
But at the moment, his heart is in a mess, and his memory is completely overdrawn.
He takes up his pen and his head is in a mess. Even when he sees the white paper he has just written, he doubts whether there will be any deviation or mistake in the content he has just written. For a moment, he felt that the pen in his hand was as heavy as a kilo, shivering, but there was no way to write down a word. Even if he bit his lower lip hard and broke it, his mouth was full of bloody taste, he couldn't make his mind calm down. I'm done.
At this time, Yi Tian put down his pen and looked at Xiao Yuer and Shi Chunsheng, smiling. Then he looked at Xiao Fei.
Poof.
For eyes meet, when Xiao Fei saw the thick pile of paper on Yi Tian's desk, and then looked in front of him, he suddenly saw countless stars out of thin air, followed by a burst of fishy salty throat, spitting blood, and fell back straight.
I'll go. I'll vomit blood. This guy's psychological quality is a little too bad, isn't he? Yi Tian looks at Xiao Fei's appearance and can't help but be scared.
Not to mention him, all the students in Yanhua University are stupid.
They didn't expect that Yi Tian showed such amazing and terrible level in this competition.
What's more, Xiao Fei would vomit blood and faint because of frustration.
But it's not hard to understand.
After all, Xiao Fei has always been the proud son of heaven, known as the Great God, and highly admired. This kind of situation naturally made him form a habit of feeling that he was better than others, that is, he was more powerful than others.
His idea was actually right.
After all, he was really the object of envy.
Unfortunately, he met Yi Tian now.
This defeat destroyed his self-confidence and his pride, which made him unable to accept. Therefore, he was so depressed that he vomited blood.
Ah, help Xiao Fei quickly, don't let him fall.
At this time, people suddenly react that Xiao Fei is falling to the ground, but no one is helping him.
He has just vomited blood.
If he falls down, his head will be broken and blood will flow again. But if he breaks his head, he will be in trouble.
Shwa!
But without waiting for everyone to stretch out his hand, he saw that Yi Tian had already moved. He made a lunge to Xiao Fei's back, holding his head firmly. Immediately after that, he put Xiao Fei on the ground. This guy, in fact, is not so annoying. Although he is a little bit arrogant, he is also a kind person. I didn't expect that he would go to help Xiao Fei. Just now Xiao Fei was crazy in front of him.
His heart is very good.
Seeing this scene, the students of Yanhua University look at Yi Tian, and they can't help but become more gentle. They feel that Yi Tian doesn't look as disgusting as he did at the beginning, and there are still many things to be worth mentioning.
What is he doing? Is he massaging Xiao Fei to help him wake up? I've read his materials. It seems that he studies Chinese, not traditional Chinese medicine. What's the matter? He even knows how to massage? It's incredible. It's really outrageous.
This guy, even if he's handsome, has such a good memory and can save people.
Is it natural?
But at this time, let them feel more incredible scene appeared. Only see Yi Tian put Xiao Fei flat, actually his hands hold Xiao Fei's head, gently massage up, that look, people feel, just like giving Xiao Fei treatment.
Well.
Almost at the moment when everyone's voice sounded, Xiao Fei, who had fainted, slowly opened his eyes and woke up.
You. Xiao Fei wake up, see Yi Tian's hand on his head, immediately understand, is Yi Tian saved himself. It's just a failure, not so terrible. How can life be without a few defeats?
1,000 tempering is steel, a setback is broken, that is scrap. Yi Tian looks directly into Xiao Fei's eyes and comforts him with a smile. Just after Xiao Fei fell to the ground, he shone through Xiao Fei's head with Yuan Tian's eyes and found that this guy had a slight cerebral hemorrhage because of his failure. The overflow blood pressed the brain nerve, so he would vomit blood and faint. I think it was Xiao Fei who got the first prize from childhood to university. He got too much, so he was beaten like this when he met with failure. When Xiao Fei heard this, he could not help but feel ashamed.
For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Check the results. I want to see how much worse I am than him.
After a long time, Xiao Fei struggles to get up, looks at Qi Chunsheng and Xiao Yuer, and says in a deep voice.
5 pages short.
Moreover, what Yi Tianma wrote is exactly the same as what he wrote in the dictionary,
and there is no wrong Latin letter. There are several mistakes in your dictionary.
Xiao Yuer and Qi Chunsheng pick up the dictionary, and after comparing them, they look at Xiao Fei and say. 5 pages of content, there are a few mistakes. When Xiao Fei heard this, he couldn't help laughing bitterly. He always thinks that he is a genius, and he is a top genius. From small to large, he is the child of other people's family, in the mouth of other people's parents. He really didn't expect that one day, he would lose to others in his best memory, and still lose to others by such a big score.
The gap is so big.
All the students of Yanhua University were shocked at the moment, one by one. Not to mention the small mistakes, the gap between the 5 pages is too big. You know, Xiao Fei is the top academic bully who got full marks in the college entrance examination. Such a big god-level character will lose to Yi Tian in the memory competition, and it is still the big gap that the score disparity has reached the extreme. This makes people almost doubt whether Yi Tian is a human flesh scanner. Otherwise, how could he easily write down so much content?
I lost. Xiao Fei looks at Yi Tian and lowers his head.
Although he is not reconciled, but also understand that this time, he really lost, and it is a big score. Lost the game, not convinced.
Or what I just said, a failure, not so terrible. How can we live without a few defeats?
The leaf sky lightly smiles to put to wave a hand, light way.
Have you failed, too? Xiao Fei hears the sound and looks at Yi Tian curiously. For the time being, not yet.
Yi Tian touched his nose, then shrugged with a smile.
Cut.
After hearing this, the students of Yanhua University, who had raised their ears and wanted to listen to Yi Tian, who was as strong as Yi Tian and would have failed, immediately cast a look of disgust at Yi Tian.
This guy is really irritating. This competition is unfair. He just saved Xiao Fei.
He is so skillful that he has learned medicine. He has just compared with Xiao Fei.
However, in the medical dictionary, Xiao Fei doesn't know medicine, but he knows it. In this competition, Xiao Fei has reason to lose, and he won, but it's not so fair.
But at this time, along the crowd, suddenly came Su Hao indignant rebuke.
Yes, it seems a little unfair.
His words fall down, and people think back to the picture of Yi Tian rescuing Xiao Fei just now, and immediately murmur in their hearts. Senior Xiao Fei, I suggest you have another fight with him after you have a good rest, and then have a showdown.
At that time, you will be able to win.
At this time, Su Hao saw the crowd and immediately told Xiao Fei. Yi Tian smiles and looks at Xiao Fei casually. Su Hao, you don't have to stir up the flames here. I tell you, although I don't want to lose, I'm not afraid to be known that I lost. Seeing this, Xiao Fei immediately looked at Su Hao. After a deep voice, he turned his head and looked at the students of Yanhua University. He said in a deep voice, what Yi Tian and I have just chosen is indeed a big medical dictionary. However, it is a big medical dictionary of Western medicine, but Yi Tian saved me with the massage therapy of traditional Chinese medicine. The difference between traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicine is very different, especially in dictionaries. There is no possibility of overlapping.
Su Hao, we people in Yanhua University lose when we lose. What can't be recognized? You can't afford to lose. It's a shame. Get out of here. Don't disgust me here. I know why those exchange students love you when they come back. It's a shame that you can't afford to lose.
When a group of students in Yanhua University heard this, they immediately fried the pot and looked at Su Hao with disdain.
It's a shame to lose a game, but if you work harder, you can win it back later.
But if you don't admit it, like Su Hao, you can make a far-fetched reason to deny it. It's really a shame to lose it to Grandma's house. When the news gets out, where are the students of Yanhua University?
Su Hao, it seems that no matter where you go, you are not so likable?
Yi Tian listens to this sound, and Xiao becomes the target of public criticism.
After Su Hao looks at it, he laughs faintly.
Not only Yi Tian, but also all the students of Yanhua University looked at Su Hao with disdain.
It's never terrible to lose.
After all, no matter who you are, you will inevitably encounter two failures. Yi Tian has never met failure now, but he also has something he can't do, which he frankly admits. But if you lose but don't admit it, and also find a lot of reasons and excuses, this is some people, really some don't like it. It's not only the opponents who don't like it, but also the people who are on their own side feel like eating a fly. You say that this kind of person is for his own good, but after the things he does are spread out, more people will be lost.
Su Hao looked at the despised eyes, hoping to dig a crack to get in, staring at Yi Tian dead looked at a few eyes, turned and left in a hurry. I will try my best. One day, I will win you. After Su Hao left, Xiaofei looked into Yi Tian's eyes and said in a deep voice. Work hard.
However, many people have said this to me, but up to now, no one has really done it. Yi Tian understated a smile, casually shrugged, is still that angry person not worth life appearance?
I'll try to be the first to do it.
Xiaofei after this failure, people become a lot of tough, looking at Yi Tian, resolute way.
Come on.
Yi Tian nodded with a smile, then turned to look at Qi Chunxing and the students of Yanhua University, and said with a smile, Wendo and Wudo are over.
Now, what do you think of the result? Is there anything you want to say?
A word fell, everyone immediately silent down, lowered his head, but could not say a word. Whether it's fighting or fighting, there's no doubt that Yi Tian won, and he won with a crisp and smooth style, which is amazing. If you count these two games, Yanhua University has lost to Yi Tian twice. This result is really hard to accept, but it has to be accepted.
Congratulations, but we Yanhua University will not admit defeat. One day, we will win you.
A moment later, a group of Yanhua University students raised their heads, looked at Yi Tian, gave congratulations at the same time, and then made a vow. Not to mention these two games, Yi Tian won the game quickly, just because he was able to forget the past. When Xiaofei vomited blood and fell down because he couldn't accept the defeat, he reached out to help him. However, they could not help but admire him for his boldness and could only admit the defeat frankly.
Well, the game is over. Let's break up.
The contradictions between us are all small ones.
In the future, we will face the students outside China.
Winning them is the right way. Seeing this, Qi Chunxing chuckled and then said in a loud voice. In fact, losing to Yi Tian makes people feel unwilling, but when you think about it, he doesn't mind such a failure. After all, the students of Yanhua University have been used to the status of the proud son of heaven, and often think that they are superior to the students of other schools. But as the saying goes, too proud easy to fold, just Xiaofei Hematemesis syncope situation, is a true example. A failure, perhaps unwilling, but can give these students a basin of cold water, let them sober up, can no longer be so arrogant. A group of students of Yanhua University nodded when they heard the news.
They immediately looked at Yi Tian with complicated eyes and turned away.
You've been staying in the school hotel recently.
It's arranged. Here's the room card.
As I said before, many teachers in Yanhua University are very good.
If you have time, you can listen to their lessons.
Of course, the scenery of the campus is also good.
You can let Yuer take you around.
Qi Chunxing waited until a group of Yanhua University students left, took out 2 rune cards from his pocket and handed them to Yi Tianhanyanbing, and then started his big plan again.
Headmaster Qi, is it really good to dig people like this in front of us?
After Yanbing reaches for the rune card, she picks an eyebrow at Qi Chunxing and smiles. Although Qi Chunxing's action is very annoying, there is no doubt that it is also a kind of pride. After all, Nanhai University is a little inferior to Yanhua University in terms of both its heritage and history. But now, Yanhua University is digging up students from Nanhai University. How can Yanbing, a member of Nanhai University, not feel proud and proud?
In front of you, Headmaster Wang, I still say the same thing. Qi Chunsheng raised his eyebrows and laughed.
Then he looked at Yi Tian and Xiao Yuer and said, I have something to deal with next, so I won't accompany you.
In the next few days of communication, I will let Yuer be your guide. Yuer, is that okay? No problem. Without thinking, Xiao Yuer nods to Qi Chunsheng and answers the question.
Seeing this, Qi Chunsheng nodded with satisfaction, then turned and left.
Yi Tian, you haven't been to Yanhua University, have you? Shall I show you around the campus?
After Qi Chunsheng left, Xiao Yuer looked at Yi Tian and said with a smile.
Yes. Yi Tian smiles and nods.
In my last life, he really didn't come to Yanhua University, the top institution of higher learning in China. However, when he was in primary school and junior high school, he was like all the children in the world. He had the idea of entering Yanhua University and becoming a member of them.
This time, Yan Bing didn't say anything. She didn't come to Yanhua University.
She also wanted to enjoy the elegant demeanor of this top university.
Soon, the three people went shopping in the campus.
It has to be said that such a top university as Yanhua University is really not comparable to Nanhai University. Every place in the campus has a long history and has left many masters' footprints. Such historical accumulation and cultural heritage are by no means comparable to other schools. Although Yi Tian is not so attentive to school now, listening to Xiao Yuer's story, he is still impressed by it. Meanwhile, Yanhua University is off campus. At the door of a restaurant, Su Hao was standing there looking around, waiting for someone. Immediately, when a golden cup car stopped and came down from it, 3 or 4 little gangsters dressed up a little bit, with a gold chain around their neck and a cigarette in their mouth, immediately went up with a smile.
Tut tut, college student, why do you suddenly remember to invite our brothers to dinner? Do you want us to help you clean up some people?
After seeing Su Hao and throwing away his cigarette, a leading shirt thug looked at him and said with a smile.
Look at what you said, Brother Water. Can't I treat you to dinner?
Su Hao and these people, who were very familiar, had a ha-ha fight with the washertwok. Then the conversation turned around and said, but today I invite Brother Shui to help me clean up. When it comes to clean up, Su Hao's eyes are even more fierce and vicious.
When he was at Nanhai University, he was humiliated by Yi Tian for Haosheng. This time, Yi Tian came to Yanhua University. He thought that the local battle would bring back the lost face. So when he learned that Yi Tian was coming, he jumped up and down to make the so-called Sibyl in martial arts. Xiao Fei, in particular, didn't want to take part in the fight at the beginning. He didn't think Yi Tian gang had to be so stiff when he came to communicate with Xiao Fei. He told a lot of lies in front of Xiao Fei, saying that when he was at Nanhai University, Yi Tian was so invincible that he tried to persuade Xiao Fei. But he were expect to get, Xiao Fei unexpectedly also by Leaf Day to trample at the foot. Not only that, even if Xiao Fei lost, Yi Tian took advantage of this opportunity to humiliate him.
It's tolerable, but it's intolerable. No, the first thing he thought of after he left Yanhua University was revenge on Yi Tian.
Little things, show me the photos, recognize people.
Flower Shirt Water elder brother nodded at will, toward Su Hao stretched out his hand.
Brother Shui is so bright.
Su Hao hears sound, in the heart of joy, hurried the Leaf Day photograph that mobile phone stealthily photographed handed in the past.
Easy to say, how do you want to deal with him, broken hands or feet?
Flower Shirt Water elder brother while looking at the photos, while casual, that look, as if crippling a person, as simple as crushing an ant.
No, I want you to beat him in the head.
Hearing this, Su Hao shook his head and began to smile, it's best to beat him into a fool.